This is the ordinary council meeting of Monday, the 24th of March, held in the Cowra Council chambers. First up, I'd like to welcome all the people that are here to watch the council meeting, and I welcome you. In accordance with the Local Government Act of 1993, Cowra Council is recording this meeting and will upload the recording to Council's website. By speaking at this meeting, you agree to being recorded and having that recording published in the public domain. Please ensure that when you speak at council meetings, you are respectful to others and use appropriate language at all times. Cowra Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures made during the course of this meeting. We acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we gather, the Wiradjuri people, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging. I'll take apologies tonight, and I don't believe there are anybody. Everybody's present. 1.4 is disclosures of interest. Council and staff, please indicate in relation to any interest you need to declare. A, what the report or item you are declaring an interest in. B, whether the interest is pecuniary or non-pecuniary, and C, what is the nature of the interest. Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, I'm probably being overzealous here, but I am going to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 3.1, ALGA Federal Election Advocacy. Given that I'm a Commonwealth public servant, I need to maintain political impartiality. So I won't leave the room, but I'm just calling out that potential conflict.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Fagan.
I'd like to declare an interest, a non-pecuniary interest in item number 6.4, the donation to the Cowra Rugby Club request, as my husband is involved in the running of the particular event. Thank you.
Will you stay in the room? Or
I won't. I'll leave the room.
Thank you. Councillor Kiss.
I'd like to declare a minor non-pecuniary interest in item 6.2, section 355 Youth Council minutes. My son's a member of the Youth Council and I'll remain in the chamber. Thank you.
Yeah. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 9.1, Cowra Community Grants, round 2. A family member is a member of one of the organisations applied. I did not participate in the decision regarding that application, but I will remain in the room as a decision's been made, and I won't be able to change any decision, so I'll stay in the room.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Speechley.
I'd like to declare a non-pecuniary interest in item 8.3, development application 10.2024.71.1, as a family member is adjacent.
Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to declare a pecuniary interest in items 4.6 and 8.3, being the same item, as a family member is involved in the submission of this DA, and I will leave the room.
Thank you.
And I might note for Councillor Speechley that it would be the same number for her. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, presentations. We have a presentation from the New Year's Eve Beach Party Committee. Anne Johnson is going to come and speak to us, I believe. With her husband, Ray. Just hit that button, right? That's it, thank you.
Yeah, I'm not used to public speaking much. Good evening, Mayor Paul, Deputy Mayor Nikki and councillor representatives of the people of Cowra. I am Anne Johnston and I am the President of the Cowra New Year's Eve Beach Party Committee for 2025-26, after having served in the same position last year, 2024-25. I have been on the committee for the last 4 years. I would like to introduce the current committee for this year: Judy Eddington, Ray Johnston and Jason Stanford. We all live and work in the Cowra community, serving in education, local bus transport, local courier and voluntary organisations. The Cowra New Year's Eve Beach Party Committee has been functioning in its present format since 2018, when a group of like-minded residents recognised the need for an avenue of entertainment on New Year's Eve. 2 members of that original group are still serving members of the current committee. I would like to share with you some of our history since the committee's formation. It hasn't been an easy road, as you will see. In 2019, due to weather conditions, there was a total fire ban, so no fireworks, but still about 600 residents and visitors enjoyed the evening. In 2020, the event had to be just fireworks display due to COVID protocols. Despite this, there was a drive-in fireworks with 87 vehicles through the gate, with approximately 350 people enjoying the display. A similar situation presented in 2021 with another drive-in fireworks with an attendance of approximately 480 persons. Then came 22 and the floods. After a lot of hard work by the Showground Trust to get the area safe to use, an estimated 710 people were able to enjoy the evening. In 2023, a crowd of 689, and in 2024, approximately 720 attended the event. Over the years, we have worked hard raising funds for the entertainment of our fellow residents and visitors. We have provided activities including a dunking tank, volleyball, mud pit, feed the shark, a petting zoo, horse-drawn carriage rides, and a parachute jump performed by a local daredevil to help keep the children, young and old, occupied while our food stores kept the mums and dads fed. In addition, Terry Lovett's foot-tapping music keeps everyone entertained. The event cannot run without the assistance of individual volunteers and groups like the Cowra Army Cadets, the RFS, SES and Fire and Rescue New South Wales, all of whom give freely of their time. The event attracts not only Cowra locals but visitors from outside the Shire. Last year we had people from Young, Orange, Bathurst, Sydney, Newcastle, Canberra, Victoria, Queensland, Western Australia and 2 travellers from Germany. Each year we nominate a local charitable organisation to whom we donate money contributed by people in attendance as a payback for having free admission. Last year we were able to donate to the Cowra Community Chest the amount of $526.55 towards their programs. All of what we do obviously costs money, which we have to raise. Thanks to a large number of Cowra businesses who sponsor us in exchange for advertising. Also, we have applied to state government grants in the past and been successful, but recently the government has changed the eligibility criteria for grants and unfortunately we cannot apply for most of them. We raise funds through our 100 club sales and raffles, but there is still a shortfall in our budget. And this is where our wonderful council has stepped in with a lifeline in 2024. The committee would like to give our most grateful thanks to every councillor for approving the financial assistance that was given to us for last year's event. Also, many thanks for the in-kind assistance also freely given, the supply and collection of garbage bins, setting up signage for local traffic control, including special event signs, safety fencing, and in previous years, excavation and rehabilitation for the mud pit and the provision of a stage. And in closing, I'll just say we have already started fundraising and planning for this year's event. So many, many thanks to you people for putting your hands up and financing some of our expenses. And if I could ask Mayor Paul, please, if you would like to come up. Okay, Paul, I'd like to present you with a certificate of appreciation for your part in all of what we've done. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And to, if you like to stay and take, to the whole of Cowra Council. We've also got one for you guys too. So it's just in recognition of your sponsorship and support of the beach party.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Put it in my office.
Okay. And obviously we will, as I said at the end of my address, that we have already started fundraising. We will do our level best to collect as much finances as we can. But if we come knocking at your door towards October or November, we hope that you can help us out again. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, Anne. We appreciate you coming in. Not everyone comes in and thanks us and gives us a report, so that's wonderful. Thank you very much. We now come, there are no people registered for the public forum. They haven't registered with the General Manager's office to speak on any items in the agenda. So we will move on to item 2, confirmations of the minutes. I'll now take a motion to confirm the minutes of the ordinary council meeting held on the 24th of February 2025. Thank you, Councillor Downing and Councillor Horton. Thank you, Councillor Downing.
No, nothing
Not
necessary.
required.
It was just that there was a very short amount of people here, so it was mostly Tony and I.
Yeah, it was the daily double from memory. Councillor Horton,
No.
anybody
not
else would
required.
like to say anything? Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Write a reply you don't require. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you very much. Passed. Um, 3.1 is a mayoral minute that I will move. This is that we advocate to all candidates in the federal election in our electorate, and we support the advocacy of the ALGA. I'll move that. Councillor Fagan, thank you. Councillor, look, this is an ongoing thing. We also had a meeting with the JO last week, I think it was, where we had all the candidates there and explained to them what we would be looking for from a government and what our needs are, whatever. This and all goes back to the amount of funding we think we require. And again, we will advocate that 1% of all revenue from the government be allocated to local government. At this stage, I think it's running between 0.3 and 0.4 of 1%. So we'd be looking to almost double the amount of funding we get. Councillor Fagan.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very important advocacy piece for us, as we have to tell people how much or how little we get from the Australian local government, from the federal government for our local government services. At the moment we get 0.51% of GDP, which is $3.27 billion. Compare that to Social Security, which gets 36.6%, health gets 15.6%, education gets 7.1%, and defence gets 6.3%. We got 0.51, and that we provide 60% of services in Australia with our 0.51. And I think, and it's very obvious, that to give us 1% would be a really good way of spending their money. We provide lots of services. By giving us the money, we can actually do a lot more on the ground. We have the services, we have the facilities, we have the infrastructure. We wouldn't be putting up our costs. We wouldn't be charging extra rates. It would be a really, I think, a very, very good way. If I was a business person, if I'm a business person, if I was in business, in local government, federal government, this would be a really excellent way of increasing services without increasing life costs. So I think this is a really important item. It's been outlined here what they would spend the money on, what we need to spend the money on. We have $500 million worth of assets, $500 billion worth of assets that we control. So it's a lot of money, and we are in charge of a lot of services. So it's really important that we actually advocate to government to increase our funding, because it's just such an important and an easy way of them increasing services without having to increase the cost of living. And I think this is a really, it's a no-brainer to me. I just don't understand why they don't. But, there are people in Parliament and in government who think that we are the least deserving section of public money. And I think this is an important thing. And luckily, the Australian Local Government Association is advocating on our behalf. So I put it to you all to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Anybody else like to speak on this? Okay, I don't require a right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 3.2 is another mayoral minute. I'd like to move that with a change that we add Councillor Wright to the NRM committee. And I had that on my sheet on my desk, but when I typed it up, it disappeared. So that's my fault. I apologise to Councillor Wright that it wasn't in the minute. But I'd like to move that we accept that with the change that Councillor Wright goes to the NRM committee. Have a seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Downing. Thank you. This has been, was foreshadowed that we would have a little bit of a change once we had our new councillor. Now we have Councillor Cave on board. So we've changed a few things around. A couple of villages have changed. So I commend that to the councillors. Councillor Downing?
Not necessary. I think you've said it all.
Thank you. I don't need a right of reply. Anybody else want to comment on any of this? No. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Pass. Thank you very much. Okay, item 4, the 4.1, the draft minutes of the Audit, Risk and Improvement Committee from the 12th of February 2025. Councillor Kiss, thank you. And Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
This was all discussed at our general committee meeting on the 10th of March, so I won't go into it any more detail. Thank you.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just briefly again to pass on our great sadness to see that Ron Gillard has moved on and resigned from this role, and looking forward to meeting, hopefully, a new chair very soon.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment on the ARIC committee? Councillor Kiss, right of reply. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Pass. Thank you. 4.2, a donation request from TAFE, New South Wales, on cemetery fees. Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Horton. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We discussed this at the general committee meeting. I have confirmed since that there are plaques going on these headstones, so they will have names for the people whose headstones they belong to. As we all discussed, it's a very meaningful project on so many levels for those participating and also those who will receive the headstones and their families. It's been a very successful program in a number of other communities, and it's really great that our LAC and our TAFE came together to provide such a great project. So I would ask my fellow councillors to also support this project.
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Not required, all covered. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Thank you. I'll put the motion, right of reply, Councillor Watt. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. Thank you. 4.3, the investment and financial report. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Fagan, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Look, I won't go into it in any detail. We did go into it in the March general committee meeting, but I was pleased to see that we're nearing the end of a couple of our higher rated loans, being the recycling plant and sale yards effluent screens. So that's very good to know.
Thank you. Councillor Fagan.
Just to say that the council is in a good financial situation, and we have plenty of money in reserve. We're actually not able to spend all that on the projects that we'd like to, but we do have a $1.7 million interest acquired, which is great because we have this money from the government. So it's a really extra bonus for us having money invested from the government for other projects. So that's an extra thing that we have. So we are in good financial position.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, just a quick comment. It's broken down on what's tied and untied finances in the money we got invested. the untied money is, it's money that we can spend on projects that's, that may need some extra money in our budget, but it's also, the auditors, I've heard the auditor say for 14 or 15 years that we need at least 12 to 16 weeks of money to run the business in case something happens that the money doesn't come in. So 1.45 million of that is necessary to cover our wages and so forth if something is held up, and that's part of being a successful council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Would anyone else like to comment? Right, a reply, Councillor Kiss. Thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Thank you. Passed. 4.4, the Local Water Utilities Funding Models Review. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Fagan, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Just very briefly, the funding review provides recommendations for our local water utilities such as Cowra to satisfy prior to being considered for state government funding, which we are already satisfying them, as in their requirements not inconsistent with what we've always been doing. And this is really important for us because being a small water utility, we've got a large number of connections over a large disbursement area. So it adds to the overall cost of maintaining the infrastructure. And quite simply, we can't do it without the government support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fagan.
This report has come from a long time coming. It is something that we've been waiting for. Originally, the government wanted to take over all the water utilities, but there has been a backlash, and luckily, Cowra's water utilities is now safe for a short period of time until they want to review it again. So I'm very pleased that they've decided that we can manage our own facilities, and we look forward to them continuing that, not taking us over as they planned in the beginning. Thanks.
Would anyone else like to comment? Councillor Wright.
Yes, as Councillor Fagan said, that the state government and so forth have always thought that they could do better in managing our water utilities. I don't really know what the expertise they actually have. The Sydney Water and Hunter Water are very successful in what they do, but they've got a lot of connections per square metre compared to what we have. And it's interesting, it's titled Funding Models for Local Water Utilities, and our biggest expense in running our water utility is maintaining the infrastructure, which is ageing and is going to cost a lot of money to keep maintaining, and we have to be able to deliver potable water to our residents. But the biggest fundamental flaw in the funding model of local water utilities is that, given the fact that the utilities got to sell water to make money, we've got a government and an environmental lobby that thinks people that use water are environmental vandals, and we've reduced our sale of water to residents in Cowra over the last 15 or 16 years by half. It used to be about a kilolitre a day, 390, a little bit over, 390 kilolitres a year, and now it's back to about 200 kilolitres a year. But it still costs the same amount of money to run that through the infrastructure that we have to maintain. So we will continue to do it and do it well. And it's only the utilities like us that have got people on the ground that know where things are that will be able to do it, not people sitting in an office with a computer and drawing fancy lines. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Would anyone else like to comment? Councillor Kiss, right a reply? Not required. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Carried. And leading on from that, 4.5, the Lachlan Regional Water Strategy 2024. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Fagan, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
This is the Lachlan Regional Water Strategy. It's just here for us to note, but it's a high-level summary focusing on the water security for Cowra Council's town water supply. What I found interesting to note, and not at all unexpected, was that the Wangler Dam wall raising project was considered in our submission to be the most important option for our water security. And it should also be remembered too that the urban use of water utilities only accounts for 1% of Wangler Dam's capacity when we're considering our water security options. Thank you.
Councillor Fagan.
This is another government report that was required when everybody was worried about water, and it hasn't given us any confidence that they're going to continue to provide funding for these facilities or for any updated facilities, but it has noted that we do have some, we now have town water security, and we provide, and that it continues to, we continue to be the provider. And we have noted, as Councillor Kiss has said, we have noted that the dam wall raising is still one of our most important infrastructure projects. Thanks.
Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, just a quick clarification. It is 1%. Town water on the Lachlan amounts to 1% of Wangler when it's full. And so you can say it's a drop in the dam. But as the dam goes down, that 1% becomes a larger proportion of what water is left. And not saying that we should use less. All councils have got extraction levels, restrictions on extraction levels as the Wangler Dam falls in how much water it's got there. But it also should be noted that irrigation is suspended, if not all, but a large percentage of it, except for the in some cases the high security water, and the dam can get down to 16%, and our 1% for town water is, pardon me, it runs about 6% of the capacity then, but the transmission loss of getting water from one end to the other is probably higher than what the town will use in those dry times, and it's just natural that in a dry time people extract less water, but we still need to be able to have the water for the towns to happen. And at whatever level the dam is, town water, it comes in after the some environmental extractions, and it's pretty well just about number one on the list for water taken out of the river. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Does anyone else like to comment? I'd just like to note that this is the strategy 2024, and the government is working on another one as we speak, so there'll be a 2025 as well that we'll have to deal with sooner or later. Councillor Kiss, right of reply, not required. Thank you very much. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Passed. Thank you. 4.6 is development application 10.2024.71.1, lot 13 DP 1295526-67. This DA is for note only, as it is, we have deferred it to later on in the meeting. So could I have someone that we move that we defer that to later on? Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Fagan?
No need to comment.
Thank you. Councillor Horton?
No, we'll discuss
Anybody
later.
else?
Thank you.
No? Okay. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Thanks very much. Get them back in, please. Yep. Okay, thank you. 4.7, development application 10.2024.100.1, Lot B, DP 398923, 121 Fitzroy Street, Cowra, demolition of existing dwelling and ancillary structures and construction of a new dwelling, secondary dwelling and a shed. Can I have someone move that DA? Thank you, Councillor Downing. Councillor Wright. Councillor Downing.
Just to say, this was really well discussed last week and it was not unanimous, but it was voted for, and there are some variations, but the actual building is a lovely home that is going to service two people, 2 lots. So I think that we can go ahead and be confident that we discussed it all very well last week and that we can go forward with it tonight.
Thank you. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I think what Councillor Danny, it covered most of it. They're building a house with a granny flat attached. It's not to be subdivided. It's all in one lot, and some of the setbacks were encroached upon by the window, the shape of the window going out past the wall and so forth. But I think in general it's a corner block, and it will fit into the current landscape. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm speaking against this DA and will be voting against this DA. This DA asks for a number of amendments to or variations from the development control plan regarding setbacks. We often have requests come to us for variations for setbacks and we often approve them. Generally when this happens though, it is because it's consistent with the other buildings in the area. As the report articulates, the front setback onto Fitzroy Street is consistent with the surrounding houses, but the setback onto Vaux Street is not, and the rear setback reduction by over a metre is also not, as is the reduction of combined private open space. I believe very strongly that we have developed the development control plan in consultation with our community and what their community wants the buildings to look like, and a particular part of that is our provision of private open space, particularly the distance from the rear setback and the provision of backyard space or outside space. And this DA proposes to reduce that area by 10 metres squared and has quite an enclosed covered area for their outdoor space. While this might not be everyone's preference, it is what we developed in 2012 with our community and what was adopted by the community at the time. The purpose for DAs coming to council is for us to consider a subjective conversation about whether we think there should be these small changes. And it's my opinion that we should not make it in this point. People often say that there were no objections and so no one was concerned, so we should accept as is. However, what we are doing in this, and the reason it comes to us as councillors, is because we need to consider the long-term implications. It sets standards that future neighbours can use or not use when they argue for changes. It's about future occupants of this home, and it's about what the whole community does. 99% of people who put in development applications for their buildings follow in line with the development control plan, and so we need to consider as well that the majority of the community have accepted that that there should be private open space to that level. So that's why I'll be voting against it. I think it's important that we consider in all of this, we are obviously in support of more housing. We are obviously in support of beautiful homes as this is, but I believe we need to be very careful in the standard that we're setting and the significant variation from our DCP. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, just briefly, this is a quality development. Certainly by the plans, it looks like a a well thought out and well laid out plan. Yes, there are some requests for variation. Of course, that's why it's come to us in the first place. In terms of the setback on Fitzroy Street, as mentioned, there's actually a variety of setbacks along Fitzroy Street already. So that's not a great concern to me. In terms of Vaux Street, there is a request for a variation of the setback there, but it's actually only 25% of the structure. So it's like a window that would be within what we would normally have as a setback. And in terms of open space, absolutely take the point. There is public open space nearby. I agree. Obviously, that's not private open space, but there is plenty of other open space nearby. And so I think on balance, those variations are justified. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Kiss?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that Councillor Horton actually used a good expression on balance. Look, and ordinarily, if this sort of property, I believe, was further away from the CBD, didn't have open spaces right near it, it might give greater cause for consideration. However, you know, the closer we get to the CBD, the more dense our housing is going to naturally be, and we actually want it to be. And look, open space isn't for everybody. There are certain people in our community who would much rather have covered space than space out in the sun as well. So I think we need to be able to cater for a variety of family types, and it is quite a fabulous dwelling. It looks like it's going to be quite amazing. So I'm happy to support the DA. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Downing, right a reply.
Yeah, so I had written down most of what Councillor Horton had said. The people that are going to be living next to this building have not complained, and that is also part of our process, is asking for submissions for the neighbours. So if they are happy with the building that's going next door, and we can, on balance, figure that we are not going to be changing the DCP too much, then I think we probably should let it go through. And then just backing up Councillor Watt, perhaps when we're reviewing our DCP, these are the things we need to have a look at. These are our guides going forward, and also because we want to increase housing and we need to figure it out. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Downing. I'll put the motion as the DA, councillors. All those in favour? Those against? Carried. Thank you. 5.1, the Community Energy Fund grant. Councillor Watt, Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very, very welcome motion and proposal, and I'm really happy to move it tonight. It's very exciting that we've been successful in receiving these grants. As we know, these projects were identified in line with our efforts to reduce ongoing power costs and reduce our carbon emissions impact as a council. One of the things that we identified in the 2022 CSP development, because we want to act as a leader in our community and show our community what they can do. This project will see PV solar installations and battery storage across the Civic Centre, Library, Art Gallery, Council Depot, MRF, Visitor Centre, and the installation of a power factor correction unit at the High Lift pump, which I have learnt reduces reactive power, maintains efficiency and performance in electrical systems, which all sounds very, very good, the things you learn, hey? It's really great that we've been able to get some grant funding for this, and I understand what we're looking at today is whether we will match that funding, and that's the requirement of the grant. I think it's a very sound investment for us in terms of the reduction in ongoing power, and I think we've made quite sound decisions in terms of which facilities we're asking for battery storage as well, considering on their use. And as the chair of the Cowra Tourism Corporation, who of course is the visitor centre, it'll be very welcomed in supporting what we do there and reducing our bills as well.
Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I suspect Councillor Watt read the same power factor correction case study that I did. And for those that haven't, I'm sure General Manager Mr. Devery can explain to you the importance of the foam in the beer and what that represents. So I've got your interest now. No, look, so the great news is obviously in the context of volatile energy prices, and that's not going to change anytime soon. We know at a national level there's an ongoing discussion around our transition out of traditional energy sources into something else. It's not really settled what that something else is. In the meantime, for us to be able to do this makes a hell of a lot of sense. So happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Fagan?
Just to say that it is really good to see that actually we can use that we've found the money from another fund with another pocket of money that we've been able to acquire from an estimated surplus of a asset replacement program. So I think that's really important as well. We haven't had to delve into too many of our other funding bodies or access our limited amounts of money. So that's a really good cause as well. And to say that I know the General Manager stays awake at night worrying about the lift pump station because he worries about us not having any water. So I think this will probably allay some of his fears and he'll be able to get a better sleep at night. So I'm very pleased to say that we're having this high lift pump station included in this upgrading of our electricity functions. Thank you.
Anybody else like Councillor Kiss?
Actually, I would like to extend on what Councillor Fagan said there too. You know, I looked at this and I thought this is exactly the reason that council tries to be financially responsible, set funds aside and just be financially diligent. You know, it's great to have that little pocket aside where you know it's there in case of an emergency or something that is much needed, like a 50% co-contribution to something that is so significant towards our sustainability goals. So it's always reassuring to know that it's there if we need it, but it's not just to be squandered. I wholeheartedly support this.
Thank you. Anybody else like Councillor Wright?
Yeah, it's good that we're actually putting some of our own money in to help reduce our power supply. There's a lot of this new renewable energy thing is reliant on government putting all the money up and the people getting the benefit of not putting much money in at all and just reaping the rewards. But it's good that they're using the money from the built asset replacement program, but I would have thought we might have had a bit of interest there we could have used rather than part of the excess on the demolition costs of the building, that the money would have went into that asset replacement program. But I haven't followed it deeply enough, but that's what it's there for, to help our asset replacement program. There's one request that I do have. When all these solar panels turn up and are installed, I would like a report on how many damaged ones were in the consignment or broke or didn't work when they were fitted. There's been reports on national radio that up to 30% of these panels either get broken in transit or while being installed, or they don't work when plugged in. And it would just be interesting to know if that is right or wrong, and because we haven't got a recycling program set up anywhere, I don't think in New South Wales, to handle recycling these panels. And there's a lot of heavy metals and other items that are of use and need to be kept out of the waste stream. So just out of interest, if when we do this, what waste is in the consignment? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Do anyone else like to comment? I'd just like to say that I'll be very interested to see just what our power saving is, and at the MRF where we're going to have the bigger battery, how that reflects our power consumption. And I think this will be a learning curve to see just how much we save, and we're only paying for half of it, so we'll get the benefit either way, but it'll be just an interesting exercise to see what the battery does, because I think battery is the future of all of this. If they can get battery sorted out, we'll be a lot better off. Councillor Watt, right a reply? Not required. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried, thank you. 6.1, release of closed decisions. Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Fagan, thank you. Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, a lot of discussion on this previously. This was a panel process in conjunction with other councils and the joint organisation, and identified businesses that could supply line marking services to council, to a variety of councils in the JO. So this is just releasing that previously made decision. Thank you.
Councillor Fagan.
No, no need. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Right to reply, Councillor Horton.
No, not required. Thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Carried. 6.2, the Section 355 Committee draft minutes of the Cowra Youth Council. Councillor Watt. Councillor Horton. Thank you. Councillor Watt.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is putting forward the meeting minutes for 3 months of Youth Council, and it's always our busiest period, heading through from December to April. In this period, we welcome 3 new Youth Council members, Jolene D'Anastasi, Mia Brown and Braden Curtis, who've gone off with a bang already. We had a strategic planning meeting here in February, and during this period participated in Clean Up Australia Day. I'd like to make a special mention of Sienna Launders, who advocated for CYC to advocate and receive grant funding to participate in Clean Up Australia Day. And it was really useful when we cleaned up, and probably be worth doing it again, but we did it down at River Park before the festival, and we were all a bit unsure to begin with whether that was the right place, as there didn't seem to be too much rubbish around, but we noticed there was a huge amount as we went through, particularly quite small pieces of plastic that had been torn up. And I've had a chat with our director earlier today about getting some extra bins down in that area, because it was very clear that people are throwing it away despite and not having somewhere to put it, which is not an excuse, but we can do what we can to pull up, and my fellow councillor might share some of the fun things we found through Clean Up Australia Day. I think he won the prize. Congratulations as well to our 2 Festival of International Understanding ambassadors, Laura Bennett and Talia Penyu, as well as the whole Youth Council for all their work around the festival. They were very, very busy around the lead up, as all of our festival ambassadors were. We took on for the first year a Lucky Duck dip instead of the Lucky Duck race. I'm very sad to see the race end, but the Lucky Duck dip went very well, even just to make us all practice our pronunciation. As did the wonderful Holy Festival that the Youth Council ran. I'm still scrubbing blue paste off me, keep finding a new piece, but there was so many kids that had such a fantastic time, and there's really nothing better than being able to throw things at people and get permission to do it. So thank you very much for all the work that we've done. The team are already really busy with their next event of 2025, which is Youth Week. The theme for that week is We Are the Future, and the future is now. We're bringing back the talent show, which will be on the 10th of April. We will have a youth first aid basics on the Monday the 14th. Gym sessions at RAD are going again, which was a really great event last time. There'll be free sessions that youth can attend. We'll have a trivia night on the 16th of April. We're bringing this back again from last year after an amazing success. It'll be a real challenge we found last year for some adults, as the kids are in charge of writing the questions and they get a few curveballs. We might bring back the one of how many parks and playgrounds there are in Cowra. If any of my fellow councillors know the answer to that, there's a sneak peek. And we'll also be screening Minecraft at the Civic Centre and utilising the new seats, which will be very exciting. So very happy to put this forward. It's always an honour to take part in the wonderful things that the Youth Council do. They're such an energetic, positive group of kids who really contribute to the community, and I really, really enjoy spending my time with them.
Thank you, Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Look, not a lot to add. It's a really good comprehensive summary by Councillor Watt. I'm obviously new to Youth Council and was given some advice as to what to expect. It's been a fantastic experience so far. There's the energy and the commitment and the passion and the connection to this community is terrific. One of the other things that maybe Maybe it's just me. When I was a kid, kids of different ages didn't necessarily mix that well together. Older kids didn't want to hang out with younger kids. Younger kids kind of maybe looked up to the older kids too much and put too much stock in what the older kids said. Not an issue with this group. It doesn't matter where the idea comes from. As Councillor Watt said, Sienna Launders, who's maybe 12 or 13, suggested the Clean Up Australia Day stuff and really drove that. So she's one of the newer, one of the younger members. So it doesn't matter where the idea comes from. They're really enthusiastic and cooperative. Clean Up Australia Day was fantastic. Like, not surprising, you find random things. I don't know how people go home without their shorts on. I don't understand how you don't notice that you don't have your shorts on or your socks. Having too much of a good time, I guess. But they move from one activity to the next very quickly. There was a great amount of energy getting the truck dressed up, the float dressed up for Saturday, and then a full day down at the festival. Nothing was ever a hassle. Nothing was ever an issue. They're a great bunch of kids. So looking forward to Youth Week, which is next. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Would anyone else like to comment on the Youth Council? Councillor Kiss.
I read through these 3 lots of draft minutes and was honestly exhausted. Look, it actually made me really think, and I thought, I honestly don't think that we give enough credit to our councillors for what they put into the committees. You know, I know there's an expectation that we will go and attend these things and we'll do the right thing. But look, honestly, this really showed me, and in particular over the weekend, which I'll mention in a minute, the effort and the enthusiasm that you, Councillor Watt and Councillor Horton, put into these kids is really quite remarkable. And I do commend you on it. I feel like, you know, you're investing in our future and you're going over and above. And it shows. It shows by when you see the kids. It shows by the enthusiasm that goes into these reports. And I really couldn't be happier and more grateful. And if anyone might have witnessed the Holy Festival, that was at the Festival International Understanding, they'll have had a first-hand experience of just how dedicated these councillors are. I wish I'd taken photos, but I'm sure there are some available. Look, you guys go over and above, and yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss. Do we have anyone else wish to comment on the Youth Council? Councillor Watt, right of reply.
I feel I might need to provide some context for my fellow councillors. You're creative as councillors, and we were running, the festival was running a bit behind time, and we had about 40 kids with holy powder in their hands. And so the only way I could figure out to stop them was to run a little aerobics warm-up for about 10 minutes, and we had a fantastic time. I was very tired. That might be why everything stuck to me so well, because I was very sweaty by the end of it. But they're so much fun, and we always have a great time.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Thank you. 6.3, the Section 355 Committee Draft Minutes of the Cowra Sport and Recreation Committee. Councillor Watt, Councillor Downing, Councillor Horton, Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm very happy to support this motion as it's come forward. We've provided support for the Cowra Rugby Eagles Shoots Shield. Sorry, wrong item. What are we doing?
Sport and Rec.
Well, then I don't want to move that.
I thought Councillor Downing. That's
sorry.
Right.
I will leave it to Councillor Downing.
Yeah, you can see why I just sort of expected it. Move Councillor Horton and second Councillor Downing. Councillor Horton.
Thanks very much. So I mean, it's sport related, right? So we're in the right area. So yes, just moving these minutes. Just a reminder for everybody: we have our Families into Sport Day coming up this Sunday. We have been promoting that and advertising that through networks, through school networks, I know there's been a lot of work done by the committee itself to put online registrations up and that kind of thing. So that's this Sunday. We'll have a run through and have a look at the facilities. This is down at Cole Stinson Park this time around. The sports are different. The sports that are being focused on have been moved around. So the idea underneath all of that is sports that are about to go into their seasons, if we can time the families into sport day with those sporting seasons that are about to kick off, those are the ones that we're trying to promote. There will also, though, be representation from other sports. So throughout the networks, we've made sure we've reached out to tennis and dance and what have you. So there are 5 major sports that are being promoted, but there's a range of other sports that will have representation there as well. The other thing that I wanted to call out in terms of the conversation that we're trying to advance is around master plans and precinct master plans, specifically as they relate to sporting facilities. As we've provided feedback in the past, our fields are fluffy, which is fantastic. We've got great playing fields. What we want to do, of course, is bring our infrastructure and facilities up to that kind of level. Of course, we have infrastructure and facilities, but a lot of it is outdated where we do have it. And there are some other, perhaps even security issues like lighting for after dark and that kind of thing. So we're trying to drive that kind of conversation through the committee as well. And of course, the committee are really responsive to that. They're very happy with that. But we're trying to work with them on coordinating that conversation as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Downing?
Yeah, just to back up what Councillor Horton said, that our Sport and Rec Committee having their autumn Families into Sport Day on Sunday. You can still register. The registration is on the council Facebook page and also Club Cowra. And a lot of the sports that are participating are also sharing that around as well. And we're concentrating on going into the winter sports and hoping to get some more registrations for them and highlight those this time. I will pick up that we were really lucky that Philippa Childs could come to our last meeting and gave everyone there a really comprehensive idea of what's happening with all the infrastructure projects that we have going on, particularly West Cowra Oval and Mulyan, which we have grant funding for the women's change areas. And we also have had a chat about the project, which is humongous, which is the swimming pool. And we're slowly working our way through really complicated things, and hopefully we're on the right track with that. So that was lovely that people could come. Thank you for that. Everyone was really appreciative of it. So yeah, anyone who wants to go to the Families in Sport Days, more than welcome to come. And just to tell Councillor we did brainstorm talent shows ideas before the meeting started for some reason. Googled it.
Thank you. Anyone else like to comment on Sport and Rec? Councillor Kiss, thank you.
Yeah, and this was just about item 3.4 with your grants update on the Sport and Rec. Love the idea of holding another grants workshop. We did hold one before and it was really quite successful. Lawrence Ryan was fabulous as a presenter. I'd love to see that go ahead even as a whole community initiative once again, because I think it's time we gave our sporting committees and our community committees the knowledge on how to be applying for grants.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss. Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Wright?
2 questions. Danielle Spence advised the Cowra Magpies are applying for $150,000 to build temporary facilities in the greyhound shed. It's requested a meeting with stakeholders. Is that additional to the money we've been granted for facilities from the federal government grant? There's another question after that.
I'll get the directors. Al thought they got $5,000, but the director might be.
Through the chair, I'd have to take that on notice, Councillor. As the Mayor pointed out, I don't think the number was 150. And as I've previously advised council, the idea of building temporary facilities in the greyhound shed was a small scale project to get us through a season or two while the bigger scale project went ahead, and it wouldn't jeopardise the bigger grant project.
Thank you for the clarification. I was getting a bit nervous if they're going to spend $150,000 on a temporary thing and then it'd be replaced. But that's just my pessimistic view on things. The next question is grants update. And I see the netball club has taken on a professional grant writing person, $1,500 a year for 12 months. That's and for unlimited number of grants, but it's got a commission of 15% on secured grants. Will the grant include some project management also in that, so it ensures that the grant is distributed right and that the actual amount of money is going to cover what they want to do? It's I haven't got into that sort of system of commission for getting grants. I thought if we were in that, Lawrence would be on a world tour by now. But and also, would it make it difficult if they come to us looking for assistance if they're going through grant systems with this sort of organisation?
If I could, through the chair, that organisation operates nationally and provides a grant identification and drafting service for community organisations. The 15% fee is, as you mentioned, built into the grant. Your question about whether there are specific project management services is one that I'll have to take on notice. However, my understanding is that once the grant is secured, it's then turned over to the club or community organisation to administer as required. You're welcome.
Councillor Wright, I can shed a little bit of light on the West Cowra situation at Sid Callis Oval. We got a grant for change rooms over there, 750,000 for there and another 750 for Mulyan. That won't be built until after this current football season, and they want to, and they've got a lot of voluntary labour. I don't know where the 150,000 came from, but they've got a lot of volunteer labour from tradesmen around town to put in plumbing and all this sort of thing. And that, so they will have a female change room for 2 teams this year in the greyhound shed. Then when we build the female change rooms from our grant, that will make the greyhound shed redundant, and that may be very useful for the males over there. Should we get a grant to pull the grandstand down or anything like that, the males will be able to use the temporary one in the greyhound shed. So that's the current thinking at this point in time. But there certainly wasn't a lot of money changing hands to do up the greyhound shed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and it was discussed at one of the previous monthly meetings, this temporary redevelopment, but I was there in their meeting, so thank you.
Okay, Councillor Horton, right at reply.
No, not required, thank
I'll
you.
put the motion. All those in favour? Passed, thank you. 6.4, a donation request from the Cowra Rugby Eagles for a shoot shield game to be in Cowra. Now, do I have a mover for that? Councillor Watt. Seconder. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Watt.
Here we go again. Fantastic. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, as I was saying before, the council has been requested that we provide $2,000 in grant funding to the Cowra Eagles to support them in hosting the Shoot Shield. We've supported the Eagles before in a number of events that they've done similar to this event, where they are seeking to bring in a number of people to witness these high quality events. The contribution they've asked for is specifically in relation to the accommodation costs. They host the teams themselves from both teams that come through. Each team brings 2 sides, and the anticipated overall cost of the event is $21,000 for the club, which is quite a significant amount for for the club. They have informed me they've been doing a lot of fundraising. They have, in the past, they had a very big fundraiser last year and covered most of their costs by selling the Cowra Eagles individual jerseys. So people sponsored individual jerseys, but that's not something they can do each year. They anticipate that each team itself will bring around 200 people. And then on top of that, they're expecting up to around 1,000 people to attend to come and watch the game, and expect that most of them will stay one night, if not two. So it's a very big event for our community. And for those who have spent too much time watching rugby union like I have, or being forced to, the Shoot Shield is quite an important, I can see Pat laughing behind me, quite a high quality game, and it is a real honour that we as a town have been can host that each year. And it's also something that's televised and brings a lot of people to our community. So I think it's a really fantastic event for us to support a volunteer group who are putting this together and put on quite a few events of this nature to bring people to Cowra. Thanks.
Councillor Kiss.
Yeah, I think that Councillor Watt might have actually answered my question. It was just something that had been puzzling me. I mean, obviously, I'm very happy to support this. The Rugby Eagles do attract a lot of positive attention for the community, got a great focus on their image. You know, it's a great reflection on our shire. But I was thinking, under what sort of conferences or something is the accommodation actually paid for? And I was thinking, why don't you just pay for their own? But, you know, as you've just said, that, you know, yes, we might be paying for, or they might be paying for a small portion, but they're actually bringing along hundreds of people. So that just, I thought, yeah, that makes a lot of sense now. So it's actually a relatively small investment for a much bigger benefit for the community overall. You know, it's just a shame that we don't have a lot more funds available for community donations, because I don't like to see that bottom line starting to dwindle down. But, you know, look, honestly, $2,000 I don't think is at all unreasonable. Thank you.
Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Wright.
Thank you. I think it's good that we're making this contribution. Some people might think that 2,000 is too much, and other people might think that it's not enough. In a budget of 21,000 that they expect to spend, this is and I presume this will have at least state media coverage, and because it's a state, well, theoretically it's a senior level competition in the metropolitan area, and they bring it out here to give some people a chance to see this good football in the country areas. The Cowra Eagles have a long reputation with Eastwood, and either playing cricket or football. I think they used to play Eastwood game of football before the Bledisloe Cup tests and that in Sydney, or any other tests that was in Sydney. But this is also be seen as we're putting our badge on a major community event. And if people see that Cowra Council is supporting them, that it will give them heart that we have got everyone in we're prepared to support various parts of the community, and the Eagles have a very strong junior rugby players, and that develops that. And these sort of games will only make them more keen to play, and I think it is a very good idea that we offer support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anyone else like to comment? I will clear a couple of things up. They northern suburbs are playing Eastwood, and northern suburbs normally bring this happens annually. They normally bring junior sides as well. So the kids all get involved, but also the kids' parents have to come for the weekend. The coffee shops, the motels, everybody gets a bit of it. And on the Saturday, there's a dinner on the Friday night, so there'll be a lot of people here for 2 nights, some 3. And they will name on a Saturday, they will name the rugby field over there, the Milner Field, which is the same as Eastwood play on the Milner Field. So that's the the Milners have been strong supporters of the Cowra rugby as well as Eastwood rugby. So it will be a very big weekend, and I think Cowra will do very, very well out of it. Right, a reply, Councillor Watt.
No, thank you.
I'll put the motion. All those in favour?
Aye.
Passed. Thank you. Yes, we'll get Councillor Fagan back in. Okay, 7.1 is introduction of the declared dams safety levy from July the 1st, 2025. This would be the buck passing and cost shifting levy. Can I have a mover that we accept that? Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Fagan.
This is a, as you've just intimated, this is a cost shifting from the government to the local government areas. And because we have 4 retention dams, very responsible as we were, and created 4 retention dams in residential areas to stop the flow of water in flooding and large downfalls, we have now been asked to, we have engineers of our own, they inspect these retention dams. They have holes in them. They're not actually dams. They're actually to stop the flow of the water. We are now required to pay a levy to the government of $60,000 more to come and inspect those dams yearly and look after them for us, although we may not ever see them. And we are required to pay that money. It doesn't matter how much we've complained and told them that it's not necessary. And I'm sure there are many other councils in New South Wales which have done the same. So I think this is, as we've all discussed, this is a terrible cost-shifting event. We will continue, I think, to push that local government New South Wales and that they stop this, because it's just a real cost-shifting. And that $60,000 is virtually our percentage rate rise if we raise our rates to the percentage that we're supposed to raise our rates at $60,000 that we will just won't have, although we have to raise our rates to get it. So it's terrible, and we've already protested. Governments are aware of it, but they haven't done anything about it. It seems to be the state government's just trying to fundraise wherever they can to balance their books, and this seems to be the 3rd or 4th time that we've actually had this happen to us. So by raising our rates, we're actually just covering the government's taxes. So we have to say yes, but that's not very nicely.
Councillor Kiss.
I can hear that Councillor Fagan's just as reluctant to pass the motion as I am to second it. Look, I get that we have to have security on dams. I get that things like a Wyangola dam wall, yeah, we've got to test that it's secure and it's solid and everything else. But for goodness sake, sometimes it's just a hole in the ground. I mean, how is the dam meant to burst on a hole in the ground? Like I was thinking to myself and had a little chuckle, because I said, at some stage something has to give, you know. I hope it's not a damn wall, but anyway, that's my own little dad joke. Look, council can't be continually expected to be paying more on these imposed expenses without having its revenue increased. I mean, it's basic maths. They can't keep adding these expenses on us for things that are, you can't say safety is unnecessary, but it's sort of like they're making things up and then making them to look like they're necessary, but then we can't object to them. Anyway, can we object to them? We have, but whether it means anything or not, it's a different story. Anyway, that's just another waffle. That was what was going through my head when I was going through it. It's just quite unbelievable.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss. Anybody else? Councillor Horton, thank you.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, this is really poor form. I was only reading today, maybe it was yesterday, some more negative press about councils seeking special rate variations from IPART, and yet here we are presented with more reasons for us to have to raise rates. So we have already incurred compliance costs by meeting the requirements of the Dam Safety Act. We've already run studies. We've already had to prepare dam safety management plans. We already do the dam safety inspections. uh, it's amazing to me that you construct something that is ostensibly there to save private people's homes from being inundated in times of flood, and then have to pay for the privilege of properly creating that mitigation. It's bizarre. And then, as you read through it, you realise that the way they've done their calculation is per head of population in the LGA, as opposed to per ratepayer, because not everybody in the LGA pays rates. So they want to pass it off that, it's a minimal cost impost. It's not a minimal cost impost at all, on top of what we've been hearing about for the last couple of years around cost of living pressures. Every dollar that people are having to find at the moment is a struggle for some. And we can't take that too lightly. Maybe there's nothing we can do, but at least we can make our voices heard, I think. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Councillor Wright. Councillor Downing.
Just briefly, I suggest that this is why the federal government won't give local government any money, because the New South Wales government will just take it from us anyway.
Councillor Wright.
Yeah, thank you. The department's looking for 4.5 million from New South Wales local governments over these make sure these dams are inspected properly and maintained to cover the costs of their employees. But those employees will probably not even see a dam that they're getting paid for. I think it would be a fairer cost sharing if they wrote to the Insurance Council of Australia and asked for the $4.5 million from them to cover the costs of these people inspecting or maintaining or ticking boxes to say these dams are maintained, because these dams have been put in, and they were put in by, and council designed them and put them in to stop houses downstream being flooded. And we did have a lot of flooding west of Lachlan Street there during a period of the early 90s when it rained pretty substantially, I think it was. And like Murphy's Law, we've put those retention basins in, and I don't think any of them are really filled up since. But they are there, and there's been mention, they've got a pipe in them or a hole in them. That's there so the water can be regulated out, not to go out in one big area. So it's a bit like the gates on Wyangla Dam, that they open to certain levels when the dam gets to a certain height to alleviate the future possibility of excess water coming in. But if they're not prepared to write to the Insurance Council, I think it's about time we as a council, when we do work on those dams and inspect them for ourselves, that we log that job and send that bill to this company, to the New South Wales Department of Dam Safety in New South Wales, to recover our costs. And just, I can imagine it's going to write back, it's not their responsibility, but we could find some poor soul sitting in a back room saying, well, this fella's on the ball here. It's really what we should really be looking at this. It's not right. But that's a few ideas that I've got. But thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. When the inspectors turn up, I just wonder whether they'll give us a report and tell us that our dams have got holes in them. That'd be interesting to see. Anybody else write a reply, Councillor Fagan?
Just to say that we're being charged $3.35 per person in our shire. The majority of that there'd be a lot of children and people living in your house, so it's about quite a $15 impost on every family, on every household, which is a cost of living definitely. And the dam and safety, we we have engineers, we have people who actually have built these and they know what's going on, and we inspect them ourselves, I'm sure. So I really don't think we need to pay the government to do any of it, and I'm very disappointed that they've come back with us, and IPART's agreed with them that they should be charging. So I think we just need to keep the anger up, and we'll bring it up again and again and again. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Fagan. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? All right. Against? Carried. Thank you. 7.2, Transport Assets Grants Program Progress Report. So this is our road report. Can someone move that we accept that? Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor Horton, thank you. Councillor Watt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As our Mayor put forward, this is an update on where we're at in terms of our expenditure against the many grants that we get for transport assets. Noting, of course, that the Federal Roads to Recovery program has been drastically increased, and this has allowed us to really focus our expenditure on projects that will have a positive impact going forward, both for our budget and for the long-term capacity of the assets. A couple of months ago, when we chose to spend a lot of money on shoulder widening, I had a few people ask me why and suggest that wasn't the best use of funds, and I referred them to the really great research our team have put us onto about how significantly that can reduce the consequences of accidents when they occur. And I think having that type of the ability to put money into projects like that, as well as the ability to tar roads that we otherwise would be regularly maintaining, is a really great position. And I really commend the team again for presenting us with those options. And I think it's a good reflection of how we as a council look at our financial expenditure. As we see here, in the 2022-2024 Roads to Recovery program, there was $52,000, almost 53, over expenditure, but this has been covered through the RRF grant funds for the next financial year. I just want to importantly point out that there's repairs for Kangarooby Road and Ferndale Road included in this plan, and council is already taking action towards repairing those roads, engaging a consultant and preparing designs. I think it's likely at this point the expenditure will be in the next financial year in majority, but we're undertaking those analysis at the moment. But very happy to support the additions of this to our long-term financial plan, particularly that this is expenditure that's grant funded and not money that we have to spend ourselves.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. At the risk of being controversial and contentious, I travel a bit locally on roads, and I think this also serves as a reminder of the great work that we do. You don't have to travel too far out of our shire to realise that our roads are in pretty good shape, and obviously needing maintenance and upkeep and what have you. But this is a really good reminder of the great work that is being done. This is a significant program of work, and I would say from my perhaps limited experience, being managed very effectively. So this is, as I said, terrific program of work, and I think the staff involved should be commended. This is a terrific summary of what we've done and what we've got to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Horton. Does anyone else like to comment? Councillor Fagan.
Just to say that Councillor Horton's correct. We do have great roads, and I think a lot of this, I feel very sorry for the staff, the ones who put this together, because I think there's so many different grants and funding bodies and different ways of spending the money, and and we're sometimes very inventive, I think, in the way we can move money from one fund to another. But it is important that we do this, and I think that is a skill. A lot of councils don't have that expertise, and I think it's really important that we can make it work for us. And there are sometimes when we have complete breakdown in some areas, and we've not planned for it. So it's really good to be able to say we'll take the money from here and give it to that. So I think it's important that we keep an eye on this, and I really thank the staff for doing that, because I think the paperwork is as important as the road works and filling potholes, because otherwise we wouldn't be getting this funding from any source. So congratulations, and thanks for the great work that you do.
Thank you, councillor Fagan. Councillor Wright.
Yeah, we do throw a lot of stones or gravel at federal and state governments, but this road to recovery funding and the other RER, whatever funding, is one of the better programs that the government has developed, and it's been a lifeblood for Cowra Shire as well as other shires in helping maintain our roads and keeping on top of the situation. This is often discussed at the Transport Congress that Alga runs each year, the Road to Recovery funding. They used to say that councils had to send a delegate to that conference to get ticked off that we remained with the Road to Recovery funding, that we took an interest in what was doing. But unfortunately, besides this funding, there's a lot of funding that doesn't get done by the federal and state governments, and it's somewhere, it could be up to $2 billion now that they're behind on maintenance of roads and highways across Australia, and they show a reluctance to try and reduce that underspend. And all the information on road safety, it always comes back. A lot of accidents and even major accidents happen 6 kilometres from your home address. And so therefore it's local government that has to maintain and ensure their roads are safe to eliminate the road as a problem for an accident. And I, like Councillor Fagan, commend staff how they can get the funding, get the job done, and report on it to the satisfaction of the authorities, and move things about. The Ferndale Road and Kangarooby Road erosion projects. Well, the Ferndale Road is a major erosion situation out there, and we've copped a lot of flack from a couple of residents up there, I suppose duly so, because it's pretty hard to get across the area. But as it says in this report, they're engaging with soil conservation to work out the best way of fixing those erosion washaways on the road so it won't happen again, and or to reduced effect take the major impact away, because it's not all that easy just to shift a road, but to repair the damage there, we need quite significant survey work. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Wright. Anybody else wish to comment? Right, a reply, councillor Watt. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Passed. Thank you. Okay, 7.3, the Cowra Sewage Treatment Plant Ultraviolet Disinfection Review. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Fagan, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. May I just start through the chair? Could I please just confirm with the director that these units are to actually measure the UV intensity and transmissivity? They're to allow for instantaneous detection of when the UV disinfectant unit that we've actually got is malfunctioning, because I read that it takes 96 hours otherwise for the testing process of the fecal coliform bacteria. So it's a way of sort of identifying that, but through a different means.
Yeah, through the chair, that's a correct summary. We can't count the actual bacteria in the Petri dish, but those indicators will give us a good indication whether we've got the correct functionality or not.
Thank you. I had to read that through a few times, and I'm thinking, no, which way does it work? But I'm really good that I stuck with it. And look, it's a safeguard for our sewage water. Make sure that it's properly disinfected before it's released back into the environment. We need to consider our pollution seriously, so I think we need to fund it to appropriately mitigate any breaches.
Thank you, councillor Kiss. Councillor Fagan.
just to say that we haven't at this time have the amount of funding required, but it's I'm sure it's well worth this, and we'll be hearing from the director in due course about the funding options and the necessary implications, because we definitely need this, and we've discovered it after a discharge, which is not our usual manner of working. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Wright?
Thank you. The first couple of lines there are very interesting, that council allocate the resources required to investigate and install if feasible and accurate. So it doesn't mean we're going to do it just for the sake of doing it. It's got to, the results have to mean that we will be able to get a good reading on what's going out, and that it is accurate, to be able to defend our actions, or if there is something happening, that it is reliable information that's coming back. And it must be noted that since the new wastewater treatment plant has been commissioned, our effluent release to the river is many times less than what it was before the old system was there. We were paying a very large licence fee, which relates to how much pollution you are putting into the river, but they call it a licence fee to make you feel a bit better and not let people know that you're polluting the river. And I just hope that they might talk to Sydney Water about putting some of these on their sewage outlets in the ocean and see if they can fix them. Thank you.
Councillor Wright. Anybody else like to comment? Right, a reply, Councillor Kiss. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. Okay, Environmental Services 8.1, Section 355 Committee Draft Minutes, the Access Committee meeting held on the 17th of February 2025. Councillor Kiss, thank you. Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Feel a little bit odd in moving this, only in that it's recommending that the council accepts me as chair. However, I will continue. I'd like to thank the Access Committee for their vote of confidence in me in recommending me as the chair once again at our AGM. It's a role I consider a great privilege, having been a member of the Access Committee since around 2017 or 18, certainly long before I ever thought of becoming a councillor, because equity and accessibility continues to be close to my heart. I'd like to thank Mr. Danny Jackett, who has held the position of Deputy Chair for a number of years now, and wish him well as he steps down and deservedly spends more time with his family. Mr. Jackett continues to be a wealth of experience and is currently our longest serving member in the Access Committee. I really appreciate Mr. Paul McCaffrey for offering to take on the role of Deputy Chair. He's very worthy of the role, I believe, and obviously the committee does too. He has significant experience with accessibility and council functions, and he has a keen desire to identify opportunities for equity improvements across our shire. You'll note from our minutes that the I&O department has been busy progressively upgrading to disabled parking spaces, and that's to bring them up to current Australian standards. And many of our mobility restricted residents have already made positive observations of those. And it's not to say that they weren't made to Australian standards at the time they were put in, but standards change, and accordingly, as they're identified as needing improvement, then I&O will work it within their plans as to how and when and so forth, as to they are able to upgrade them. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss. Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just very briefly, seconding everything that my fellow councillor has mentioned, and particularly pointing out the Great Coles car park addition of accessible parking. I noticed that recently, and it's a really fantastic provision there, and it connects well with the pathway going through to Coles, which is a very flat shopping centre for people to get to, and a good access to the main street. So really congratulate the team on that, and the many expansions in accessible parking.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment? Councillor Downing?
I was just going to mention item 5.3, which is about the tree pods and the committee raising those. I'm assuming they were on the footpaths. Having experienced little people at the park over near the visitors centre, there's a lot of tree pods in that softball area, which are very hard to walk on as well for able-bodied children. So perhaps we could add those to being collected as well in our roundup every couple of days.
Thank you, Councillor Downing. Councillor Wright?
I congratulate Councillor Kiss and Mr McCaffrey for taking on the leadership role of this committee. It's the committee has come into its own. It's been, I think it's more, the community is more aware of what the need for different sorts of access throughout the community in the last 20 years or so. People that had disabled people in their family, often they just lived a life and do what they could and battle with whatever they had. But now they realise that there is possibilities to get them out and to be more a better part of the community. Just one comment, the 40 kilometre zone in the CBD, it has been reported on radio, I think, and I know it might have been on TV or not in the news. I had one fellow come to me and he just said, yeah, you can put 40 Ks in the main street. You probably can't do 40 Ks, but you can put 40 Ks. But then other people think, well, I'm not going to go down the main street and risk getting caught if I'm doing 43. So I'll go down the two side streets, Bow Street and Liverpool Street, both past schools. So he said we could be shifting more traffic onto those streets by trying to make the CBD safer. And I'm not saying it's that will happen, or I'm definitely not saying that the CBD part of the street isn't safe at the moment. There's plenty of that island in the middle is a very good area for people to wait to navigate if a vehicle comes quicker than they thought. And we have got other areas. We've got street lights and pedestrian crossings and so forth. And I thought it was something to look at. If we do change the speed limit and that, will we divert traffic to other streets? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Kiss, right of reply.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. The tree pods. They're a bane of the existence for people with mobility challenges when they are out on the footpaths, and even those without. I've certainly slipped over numerous times myself, and I take your point too, Councillor Downing, about them in the park. Look, they're a beautiful, beautiful tree, but I wonder at who didn't have enough forethought when they were planted to recognise that they actually come up with giant balls that fall on the ground. And actually I've always called them bomby knockers, and I know that's a bit funny, but preschool taught me that. Look, we've had numerous discussions, about the benefits of pulling them down altogether, but obviously that's just not going to happen, and nor would we want it to. They're beautiful trees, but I tell you what, if any of them die, I will be there making sure that it's not another plane tree put in its place, something that doesn't have giant balls falling on the ground for us to trip over. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Kiss. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried. 8.2, the Cowra housing strategy. Councillor Watt.
Thank you. I'd like to move the amended motion that is in our late reports folder.
Councillor Watt has proposal in your pink folder. That is your proposed motion, Councillor Watt.
Correct. I haven't checked it, but it looks like a printout straight from my email.
So, okay, do we have a seconder for that? Thank you. Councillor Watt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The housing strategy, as we've discussed at great length and our community is engaged in, is an extraordinarily important document for us to create and adopt as councillors. I believe it's one of the most important things we'll do through the term and mostly through our entire time as councillors. I want to thank the many community members who provided submissions to this strategy and took the time to review the very long papers in front of them. I have two major concerns with how the housing strategy is currently articulated, and I'm proposing we make these changes to strengthen the strategy. As has been commented, there is quite a bit of detail in this motion as it's articulated, but that's primarily just to make the concurrent amendments throughout the document. Firstly, I do not believe that we've articulated through this plan sufficient proposals to expand the available land for large lot residential housing. Our current analysis shows we have 16 years supply for large lot residential housing. However, this is discounting the growing preference in those migrating to regional towns for larger lot housing and families preferring this style of housing. The strategy outlines a number of key drivers for our housing growth, including that existing and new residents have a preference for larger R5 lots and that our historical approvals have shown a lack of developers realising the full potential yield lot and opting for blocks larger than the minimum. Our initial community survey showed a strong support for large lot residential properties, both with the current community and with business owners. Business owners identify that it's a useful element in encouraging people to move here and stay here, as well as that with a tightly held market in large lot residentials, there's great impact on affordability, and that this is the type of land our community are seeking primarily to live on. That's a real concern for us as a council. Our market availability statistics in this report show that there is much greater demand for 3 and 4 bedroom housing compared to available dwellings. I think around 23 times the available dwellings, which, considering that these are the majority of existing households, I think it was around 5,000 of the 6,000 total households, it says a lot. While the data shows that these houses are on the market for a longer period of time, this is also likely due to the financial natures of purchasers. Those purchasing 3 or 4 bedroom houses are likely to be taking on a mortgage, particularly for a first timer, and those downsizing to smaller 2 bedroom houses are likely to be older, likely to be more financially stable. The strategy outlines one area for investigation in East Cowra as our urban investigation area. What I'm proposing here through item B is that we expand this urban investigation area to include 2 other identified areas to make our urban investigation area the space essentially between the eastern edge of the Cowra township and the existing area of large lot residential on, as we call, East Cowra through the report. This is not committing us to opening up this area at any point, but merely suggesting that we conduct an investigation into this area and consider the appropriateness of the areas put forward. I believe this is a good strategic decision for us for a number of reasons. It'll give us the knowledge and proper analysis of the whole area so we can make the best decisions now and into the future if demand increases. If we are to open up the existing area proposed and it fills very quickly, if we've already done the work through this urban investigation area, we'll be able to phase that out quite quickly rather than administering another study and undertaking more and more assessment. This identified area between town and the existing large lot residential area of East Cowra is the logical place for expansion without creating further urban sprawl, in that there is already an existing community of East Cowra. And we know, as identified by the Department of Agriculture, that there is concern about encroachment on prime agricultural land around Cowra. I do note that they identified this area in that space, but if you look around on their map, you'll note that they identify everywhere around Cowra as prime agricultural land, which we all know. But the truth of the matter is that if our community is going to grow, there is going to be some spread from the main area. And I think if we quite strategically focus on this area or investigate this area, it'll be the smartest way to stop the further urban sprawl and lack of infrastructure to meet that. It's important that we look into this broader urban investigation area to make sure we're adequately planning our infrastructure investment in the long term. As is noted in the housing strategy, the East Cowra water provisions are already being undertaken and have been budgeted in part for the future. If we have a real look at these areas and decide the most strategic way to do that now rather than retrofitting as we go along, that will be a much better use of our resources. We also know that this is where we are getting quite high demand, and it creates appealing land for people choosing to move to country areas. There was a research piece put out a couple of weeks ago by the University of Sydney and Ahuri. I'm trying to remember what there is, Australian Housing Urban Research Institute, that showed that the transition and migration to regional areas is not a new thing post-COVID, but in fact something that's been happening for over 10 years. And the people who tend to move are people who are mid-career, middle-aged, seeking to buy their first home or seeking to buy a larger home. And the primary reason they're moving is for lifestyle and housing. And I think if we want to be the type of town that people are choosing to do that, then we need to make sure we have the available land to meet that. In addition, I think it's quite smart for us to look at this broader East Cowra area, because as has been identified through the report, there is an anticipation that some of this area will have historical significance and will have cultural significance. So if we are investigating the whole area, that provides us a buffer. If for any case we find out that we will not develop in part of it, we're able to still meet our yield potential by looking at other areas of the broader East Cowra area. Secondly, my concern is that this strategy is prioritising short-term gain over good planning procedures to get quality housing and quality development in our community. This strategy proposes that we allow development in West Cowra and East Cowra through a reduction in service levels. In both of these areas, our council staff are working hard to deliver appropriate provision of water or sewer services, and they are planned for delivery over the medium term and planned in our long-term financial plan. There is no reason we need to push ahead with these developments before those infrastructure projects are completed. To do so will only increase the cost of implementation and increase the cost for our community seeking to develop or needing to pay for their own sewerage or water infrastructure now, and then likely be paid to retrofit later to fit in with ours. We do not need to add a barrier to development or add a significant cost increase to our community. Our communities deserve good service provision. While we are a regional council, we are not in the middle of nowhere. People deserve access to water and sewer. It's concerning that we're having these conversations here when the UN has set it as a sustainable development goal for countries much less developed than ours, that's a key provision for our community. We also know that it's a barrier to development of services and facilities like childcare centres, and have been told directly by a potential childcare provider that they would not build in West Cowra due to the lack of availability of sewerage systems. We know that it's contributed to land in West Cowra being held for over a decade and not being developed on the expectation that they will be able to get sewer connected. We can see now the problems in West Cowra of development occurring and haphazard provision of services. We need to be clear to our community and to our government bodies that we will seek to receive funding from them to fund infrastructure to provide these basic services based on enabling. I took some time today to review a number of housing infrastructure grants that are available today, which are exactly the kind of grants that we would be looking for to fund the West Cowra sewer. As we know, the West Cowra sewer project has expanded in its cost over time as West Cowra has expanded, and would be looking between $40 and $60 million today, which is a very rare amount of money to be able to get from a grant. But with the focus on housing as it exists at the moment, there are a number of grants available today. But the key objective in getting those grants is that the infrastructure enables housing. If we go ahead and allow West Cowra subdivision, we will not be eligible for that project because we have already provided the housing. It will not be a key factor in determining the housing to get there. As we've articulated, this is a long strategy. While I think it's important that we make sure we have a large amount of years of growth going forward, the truth is that we have around 32 years of supply of these medium to small density housing without amendments to West Cowra. Therefore, I think it's essential for us to notice that we don't need to make those short-term decisions to get the housing supply that we need. What this strategy should be about is planning the infrastructure, planning the strategic planning protocols and policies to make sure that we can deliver this in the future. I think we have a real opportunity through this strategy to design future development of Cowra in the Shire, and we have a responsibility to make sure this is done to a high quality and that we are not enforcing higher costs on future councils and future communities, as we've seen with the West Cowra sewer project and the drastic increase as West Cowra has expanded and the ability to retrofit it has become more complicated. As I've articulated in documents I've shared with my council colleagues and in the sharing of a few points of data today, our report and the analysis shown in it does actually show that experts in our community believe we should do more to expand in large lot residential, but our strategy doesn't match that need. It's our role as councillors to ensure that plans like this fit our community needs, both now and in the long term. We will be presented with proposals from our staff and experts around options or strategies, but it's our role to make the subjective decision of whether it meets our community needs and make sure our choices are best for them and not just best for the moment as we stand. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Downing? Anyone else like to comment on Councillor Watt's motion? Councillor Wright?
Yeah, I'm in a bit of a dilemma here. I suppose you'd think I'm always in a dilemma. I can argue with myself over anything, but Councillor Watt does raise some things that I do agree with. And she's gone into it very deeply. The reason I support the original, the recommended motion that was printed was that this is just a strategy. We're not putting anything in stone to say that what was mentioned that we might open up for subdivision at a later date will happen. And I'd like to make it clear to anyone that owns land in those areas, just be a bit careful. It's not going to be stamped that it will happen, because part of the strategy is to be able to provide land for housing development into the future to meet housing needs when needed. Now, our first meeting with the consultant indicated, or what the staff had put together after the consultant, was the 600 lots available within the town boundary at present to be developed, which would cover about 10 or 12 years housing development. But as Councillor Watt, I think, said, I think part of his statement was that these lots have been there for a considerable number of years and haven't been developed. And we as a council cannot go to the owner and say, we want you to develop them. We tried that with Yarrabilly when we sold it to the developer, and with the condition that he'd built 200 houses within 6 years of getting his DA approved. He'd come back to us crying poor, and we cut it back to 100 houses. Come back again when he's crying poor, and he's cut it back to 50 houses in a gated lot. And then he's come back again over a period of time and said, oh, it's just hamstrung me. I don't want any caveat on it how many houses I'm going to build, and it would free up my development if we took everything off. I wasn't supportive of that, but what we have got up there is a lot that was sold for housing development, sold to a developer that apparently had the credentials to develop land, but he hasn't done a one thing, and our staff have designed sewer works and so forth, even helping develop plans. Some people might think, get over it, Peter, move on. But this is the problem. We can have land in there that's been zoned, but if it's not developed, we haven't got areas for houses to be built, and we look to other areas, and we might have to rezone some on the edge of the boundary. But one thing that I am concerned about and it relates to two delay rezoning of West Cowra until completion of the West Cowra sewer project. That 15 odd years ago, that was I thought the council's committed to get that done, and it would clean up the problems we have there with septic tanks and would enable us to develop land over there into the 4,000 or 1,000 metre lots if we had sewer there. It's been common knowledge right across the development world that you put sewer into an area and the place gets developed. We've already had one instance of a childcare centre not considering land in Waratah Street because it didn't have a sewer connection, and they were told, "Oh, we got brilliant septic tanks now that'll work," and they said, "No, we have to have a sewer connection." So we possibly may have lost that development, and the more houses we put in there without sewer, the more difficult it will be, and the more difficult it will be to talk to government saying we need sewer there. And they said, well, you've put umpteen number of new dwellings there without sewer. Why do you want our help now? We've seen in Kalari Street a 4,000 square metre development where the stables were, and the blocks are selling for $300,000. But they have a septic system which will be converted into a sewer system when the sewer comes through. But it looks like the sewer mightn't come through the way we're dragging our toes on this, and they'll be reliant on this septic system to work, and we could end up with what we've got in Hague Street with the contamination of water. And it was only in the 2012 LEP, the last one that we did, that we raised the lot size there from 1,000 square metres, or it might have, I don't know, it was 4,000 square metres, up to 2 hectares, because of the ground wasn't capable of septic systems. But now we've allowed subdivision less than 200 hectares with a so-called good septic system, and a possible connection later on. It's just, we need to get the septic system in there, and if the sewage system in there, the large part of the cost when it's gone from 15 million to 45 million is easements into existing properties to connect to pipes or put pipes through there. It was a considerable number of millions of dollars we're going to have to spend. But then on the northern side of the Grenfell Road, we've allowed houses to be built on smaller lots, and they're pumping it to a system down to picking it up in a joint system and taking it down to a sewage main further down. It's probably providing sewage in a form, but it's not a proper sewage system. And then council itself has got a DA approved for the airport, and the first stage is about sold, and there's another stage to be developed, and one of the conditions was there that it had to be sewered. And at present, we're connecting anything that's being produced by the buildings over there into a septic tank, and we're carting it round to the waste treatment plant. And I don't think that's would cover the sewage of that site being sewered by doing that. So I agree with that not to rezone West Cowra, but I would like to think that I'm hopeful that if we adopted the plan without all these changes or suggestions, that it would be sewered, but I don't see it happening under the current foresight of some of the council and staff, because it's all too hard when we go to Sydney. And far as the eastern development, there's a lot gone on over there that I don't want to talk about. It's nearly entrapment. But we've had plans to put water there. Hunter Water did a very big plan for us, but we've only got it to the northern side of the Sydney Road. We have talked about putting a raw water system to the southern side of Camp Road and the other road, which could be of some use. But yeah, I agree with the strategy of how we fill it, but there's enough grey areas there that if we don't watch it carefully, we could end up with a mess. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Wright. Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So I won't be supporting the recommendation, but only for a couple of reasons.
Can I just clarify, you're talking the recommendation on the agenda or the motion of councillor Watts?
Yeah, Councillor
Yes,
Watts.
thank you.
So I'm not saying we shouldn't supply the sewer to West Cowra, but if we're not going to do any rezoning, then effectively I think nothing will happen in West Cowra for the foreseeable future. Absolutely take the point, and you've made it a couple of times, and it's absolutely valid, about pushing costs onto future councils. The practical reality is we don't have the money right now to do West Cowra sewer. I suspect it may be that West Cowra sewer ends up being a number of smaller incremental steps. If one big project is too much and too expensive, it may be that we identify a series of smaller priorities, which I think we've had that, or at least touched on that conversation previously. In terms of increasing large lot residential, I think you mentioned we've got something like somewhere between 16 and 18 years potential growth identified in the strategy, depending on what asterisk you include or don't include around services and what have you. The reality, of course, I would suspect, and I can ask this question through the chair if that's all right, is if we want to do studies to investigate other areas, we need to pay someone to do those studies.
Through the chair, yes, that's correct.
Okay. The other reminder, and I know this sounds really obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is in addition to. None of this happens in a vacuum, right? So if we add to the mix of housing stock, then perhaps some people that are on larger lots at the moment decide that it's time for them to move into something smaller, or perhaps a family who's renting. If there's an increase in the variety of housing stock available, perhaps there is something that becomes affordable to them because there's a greater mix of housing stock available, so they can move out of that, so that then becomes so none of it happens in a vacuum. Yeah. The last one, in terms of enhancing efforts to increase rental stock, baiting a new objective, I'm happy to encourage rental stock. I'd be personally very cautious about trying to educate the development industry. I think they'd probably tell me to stick to my knitting. Thanks.
Thank you, councillor Horton. Councillor Kiss.
Look, I won't be supporting this recommendation. However, there are definitely some valid points. But I do have concern over the implication that land without sewer may not meet World Health Organization standards. You know, all you need to do is look up at Gower Hardy Circuit and you think, well, you know, if they don't meet World Health Organization standards, I don't know what will. Same as properties already over at West Cowra. We're looking at $1 million properties here, some of them. And no, they don't have sewer. Look, I think that by reducing them to the 1 acre or the 4,000 square, it's not going to stop us from applying for grants in the future. Agree that it might make it on a different pretense, but it may mean that by then we're even considering future subdivision of West Cowra. Again, you know, maybe smaller than the 1 acre, but for the time being, it would increase our large lot capacity. So, yeah, concern over that. And look, I've actually thought about the preschool too. I understand that we missed out on a preschool over in West Cowra, but I actually wonder at whether maybe they had really wanted to be over there, not only for the position, but because the land value was cheaper. And had that actually been sewered, would they have even looked at that land twice because it would have been worth an awful lot more? So I sort of take that one with a bit of a grain of salt and say, well, you know, anyone's prepared to put things on land that's pretty cheap. Thank you.
Question, councillor Wright.
In C.1, monitor the delivery of the Pridham Street build to rent project. I'm not aware of a DA that's been approved in Pridham Street for that. So is that a little bit preemptive? I'm trying to make sure that what we're voting on is accurate. Thank you.
Thank you, councillor Wright. I'll ask the director.
Through the chair, we currently don't have a DA. We have been spoken to by a developer of their intention, and they have given us a base concept plan. But to date, no, we have not received a DA.
So really, we haven't got anything to monitor.
That is correct.
Councillor Downing?
Couple of questions.
Yes, you can.
So the first one is Cowra Council still committed to the West Cowra Sewerage Project? Is that still in our plans? Are we committed to doing it? As of now?
Through the chair, it's in your delivery program, yes.
Do we have the funds to do it? Any of it?
You have a current resolution that I need to report back to you about staged delivery and the possibility of spending the $11 million loan funds that council has allocated in the long-term financial plan.
Okay. And will we get funding for housing if we have already built on the land for sewer? We get funding for sewer if there's already houses there.
I don't have an answer for that.
So if we've got houses there now, could we get funding for sewer from the government now for what we have there? Because that will mean that we could in the future if we build it. Like,
I'll just make the general comment, I guess, that part of the grant application is the narrative you put forward. So could we come up with a cohesive story that would meet all the grant, guidelines?
Councillor Fagan?
Thank you very much. And I know Councillor Watts put a lot of thought and effort into this. I'd just like to, I'm going to vote against it, but I'd just like to point out that large lot residential, it varies depending on where you live. So in Western Sydney, large lot residential of 4,000 square metres is a large lot. I mean, a residential lot in Western Sydney is a large lot. 4,000 square metres is the old acre. There are quite a number of developments around Cowra, as our Garrison Estate has 1 acres and they've got septic systems. Dawson Drive has been there for 60 years with septic systems. They're all 1 acre blocks, beautiful and very highly sought after areas of town. By reducing the number of lots in West Cowra to allow people, I'm not saying everyone's going to, allow people who have the 5 acres, 10 acres, whatever, to reduce them to 1 acre or 4,000 square metres will provide large residential lots, as we understand that. Large residential lots, normal residential lots are only 700 square metres. So, it's 5 times the normal, 6 times the normal residential lot is one of these lots that we're proposing in West Cowra. I believe that we need to do this. It's a very easy solution for our housing shortage. It actually allows us to continue to develop West Cowra, and in the future we will be able to provide sewerage to different areas as we go. I take offence at Councillor Wright's suggestion that the council staff are not actually looking at the sewerage in West Cowra. We've had quite a number of reports from the director about the sewerage projects. We've had and the last one was it's going to cost us $56 million to do the whole of West Cowra. To us, that is ridiculous. It's so much money that we can't even imagine. And I believe that by doing this, by allowing residential lots to be built in West Cowra to reduce the number of lots, we will actually have a housing residential suburb that will, in the future, maybe fund that sewerage. I think, by ignoring it, as somebody said, nothing will happen in West Cowra if we don't do something. It is a really nice spot. It's close to town, has access to a lot of different facilities, and I think it would be developed quite nicely. I do think that the sewage systems that we do have, the septic systems that we do have, are modernised now, and they're more available and better quality. And quite a few people in this room live with septic systems quite happily, and I don't feel like I'm in a third world country at all. I'd just like to say I'll be voting against it, and I think that the draft housing strategy is an excellent report. Thank you.
Question,
Thank
please.
you. Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Councillor Wright.
Question. In the 2012 LEP, we changed the lot size in West Cowra from 4,000 square metres to 20,000 square metres, and the reason was that the soil was not up to standard for a septic system. Is that right?
Through the chair, I can't comment on what was proposed and approved back in 2012. However, as part of this housing strategy project, we did engage independent geotech engineers who undertook comprehensive sampling and investigations into the soils in West Cowra, and they have come back to council advising that there is no reason why a current on-site sewage management system would not work in those areas.
What size block?
They said 4,000.
I'm sorry to be probably be out of order, but you can employ the person you want to give you the answer you want. And it was
Councillor Wright.
we were
I
advised.
think you're out of order, Councillor Wright. Suggest that the council's engage someone to be a yes man. I won't accept that. I'm sorry.
I'll retract that. But in 2012, we were told by the staff and the people drawing up the LEP that we couldn't have a septic system in that area, and also up in Gower Hardy Circuit unless it was 20,000 square metres. So I was against that at the time, but I was told there's no way we can have that sewerage system. And I think we should correct, yes, Dawson Drive's an attractive area, but I thought that had come back to us. It's got a pollution problem. It's on the bank of the river with those septic systems and end up like Murray and Bateman. Thank you.
Just on that point, it might be, and I don't have the detail, but it is entirely possible that technology has changed in the years since 2012, and that there are other ways to manage that now enable on-site septic in a smaller block. Just as an observation. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Anybody else want to comment that hasn't as yet? Okay. Look, I won't support this motion. I think the document we've been working on for some time now, the staff have put a lot of work into it, and I think it's an excellent document. So I won't support this motion. But Councillor Watt, right of reply.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you everyone for your feedback as we've gone through it. To tackle a few of the points raised, to be clear for Councillor Horton, my suggestions around us pushing expenditure back on future generations is really targeted at the East Cowra conversations. My fear with East Cowra about proposing to provide areas without water there is that we are creating another West Cowra issue. Of course, as we've discussed here, the situation as it is in West Cowra is that it is now a humongous project, potentially up to $60 million, which is by no means a project that we could take on now as a council. And my concern is that if we go through the same process again of opening up housing before service provision, we'll create the same mess that we have now. In relation to your question to the staff about whether we would have to undertake research to create an urban investigation area, the reason for my proposal that we expand the East Cowra urban investigation area and is that, as this plan articulates, we will undertake that research for the identified East Cowra area. And my proposal is that we add 2 additional areas to that, which I imagine in the future this council will otherwise have another urban investigation area. And if we are to develop area 1, we're likely to come back and look at area 2 and area 3. So I think the best use of our resources is to do that work now and fully consider the whole area. I think, to be clear, by no means is the proposals that I've put forward saying we don't provide smaller or medium density housing, but it's that recognising that where our primary community and our primary demand is in large areas. Councillor Kiss, in relation to the question on the childcare centre, we were explicitly told that the cost of building was the barrier for them there. And we do know, as it was articulated by some of the departments that have come back to us, West Cowra is somewhere that's very close to town. It is, if you looked at a map of any community, you would presume it's part of the town centre, but it does have less facilities and less services than the areas east of the bridge. There isn't a childcare facility. There isn't a playground other than the one at the visitor centre. There isn't one any further west of that. Whereas if you looked on this side, there are a number of facilities that community can take part in. And we should be thinking about, if we are, which we are, committed to expanding West Cowra, how are we planning that around? And it was raised quite explicitly that we haven't done that planning. Our West Cowra plan isn't proposing to add additional green space. It isn't proposing to add those facilities or facilitate that. And I think there's a lot of work that needs to happen there. Councillor Wright, I take your point on Pridham Street. I have put it in here because it is put in the housing strategy as a given that Pridham Street project will go ahead as it is with the Yarrabilly project, which we know may or may not follow that forward. I think if we were in a situation where that didn't occur, we would amend that, and we would also amend the reference that already exists in the housing strategy for it. In response to Councillor Fagan, as with Councillor Wright, Dawson Drive is a very attractive area, but it is an area that we've identified as a huge risk due to the current sewerage system in the flood risk area. The previous council commissioned research into fixing this area and has looked to provide funding because this is such a risk if there is another flood event. I think it's a key example of why we need to consider how we do this in the future. The previous council did make a lot of progress on the West Cowra project. I think people would know that I'm probably one of the loudest critics of what's happened in the past 21 years in not breaking ground in West Cowra project. But the last council did make a lot of progress and has put in place recommendations to the staff that research be undertaken, and we're expecting that back soon on the options of how we would implement West Cowra sewer, and particularly in the high risk areas, including Dawson Drive. I think it is worth highlighting that there is, despite the fact that we are publicly committed to West Cowra sewer, there is some pullback from councillors and council staff at times about it. I have heard directly from staff, and I've been told by community members that they have been told by staff that West Cowra won't happen in their lifetime. And that's extremely concerning that a committed project is devalued by our fellow councillors and by our council staff. I don't think it's appropriate. And I have said many times, if fellow councillors believe this isn't a project we should prioritise, then they need to put that on the table, that we take that off our strategic plans going forward. There's been a lot of conversation that we would still be potentially able to get grants if we implemented the West Cowra sewer changes. As we know, grant systems change over time, and there's always capacity, as was articulated, to tell the story. But the truth of the matter is that the federal government has $32 billion allocated in funding for provision of housing initiatives, and particularly in provision of enabling infrastructure. This is part of a housing accord, which is a bipartisan project that is looking to spend money on enabling infrastructure over the next 20 years. Looking it up today, I found 2 very similar projects that have been funded recently. Kempsey Shire Council received $45 million to receive water and sewer infrastructure, and Goulburn received $27 million to update their water waste treatment plant. It was a radical change in the funding of infrastructure in this way, rather than funding parks or playgrounds or studies, but to specifically recognise what councils are saying in that infrastructure is a key barrier. And I think it's really important that we do consider the situation where we are not able to complete the West Cowra project without grant infrastructure, and we need to consider the political landscape that we're playing in. Around 28 submissions were made to this housing strategy, and 18 of those were made in very strong support of the two proposals around larger lot residential and completing services before we do them. It's been raised here that nothing will happen in West Cowra if we don't make this change today, but I really urge my fellow councillors to consider that this is a 20-year plan. The purpose of this plan is not to make actions in the next 2-5 years and not do anything after. It is a plan for the next 20 years. So we should be thinking about how are we providing those houses over the 20 years, and if we propose to provide the West Cowra housing, next year and everything next year, what are we doing in year 15? What are we doing to provide that for the houses at that time? And we should know that you need the progressive release of housing over time. I'm really concerned that we are missing that opportunity here, and that we are creating a situation where our housing strategy is in conflict with our other proposals as council to commit to West Cowra sewer, but also to commit to providing genuine services to our community. I myself live out of town, and I have my own septic system. I live on a farm. That's totally acceptable. And I'm not saying by any means that we are living in poverty, but what I'm saying, every time I have a conversation with someone in government, they are shocked that a town like Cowra does not have the level of services that this council seems to accept. I understand there's likely to be not a lot of support for what I put forward here, but I do really thank all of the community members who took the time to assess this and put forward their proposal. It saddens me that that has been discounted by the councillors here in our previous conversations, and they were dismissed as being stock standard and being put in as all the same thing. We often say we want our community to engage more in what we do, and I don't think that we should dismiss that, and we should listen to our community. As I've articulated in an email to council earlier today, and through this conversation, the prioritisation, the preference for large lot housing, residential housing, was put forward in our initial community survey that we conducted prior to the draft. It came through in the community submissions. It came through in the responses from our departments. It came through in the data that this is where the preference is. And I do not think we should ignore that for the highlighting that this housing strategy is put forward to move quickly forward and not deliver those services properly. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Watt. I'll put the motion. This is Councillor Watt's motion that's in your pink folder. All those in favour? All those against? Motion's lost. I'll now take a motion on the recommendation on 8.2 in our agenda. Councillor Fagan, Councillor Kiss. Councillor Fagan.
We have been working, this is the council's, this is to note the Cowra Housing Strategy Review of submission and submission report, of submissions report, and adopt the final Cowra Housing Strategy for 2025. This has been going on since we were first funded by the government, New South Wales government, 12 months ago. February it started. We put out for expressions of interest, and we got qualified planners and consultants to come and to actually do this big strategy, major strategy for us. It is a plan for the future. We've all discussed that. We all agree with that. It's a very big plan for the future, but it does have a lot more to go before we actually implement it. So it is a strategy. The plan has received stakeholder and community input. It's been put on a public exhibition. It's been presented at quite a number of community events, and also at local business events and other things. It is received 40 submissions, 9 of them from government departments, which is which is a very good result, and they've all been quite positive, and a lot of these changes have been made to the strategy as we've gone along. The qualified and experienced consultants have put their ideas forward, as have the council planning staff. I think the strategy gives something for everyone. There is small infill blocks will be available in the town and along and use the laneways as accesses. The large R5 lots on the edge of town will be reduced. Well, the larger blocks will be reduced in West Cowra to 4,000 square metres, and there is still lots of large residential blocks available outside of that on the edge of town. The residential R2 blocks will be still available. There's quite a lot of developers which we have in town, and they've got large residential blocks that are already available and will be developed in the future. This is a strategy. There's a great mix of different ideas, a great mix of different blocks, a great mix of lots of different ideas and things that we can use in the future. I think it's only a strategy. There's much more to do, as I said, to make this, to implement this, and to make it a really living, breathing document. And it will be changed over time. It's not going to be set in stone, any of it. And I think it's a great opportunity, and it makes certainty for people who want to come to town and who want to develop and who want to build houses in different areas. So I think it's a good strategy. It is a strategy. We need to adopt it. We need to equip the grant that we've got. And I congratulate the staff for doing such a wonderful job over the last 12 months. Thank you.
Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't know that I have an awful lot more to add, but because there is such an extensive document and we have been through it quite thoroughly, I think Councillor Fagan summed it up. I am excited about the proposal to increase our large lots out towards Woodstock, Noonbinna in particular. That's already on a water line. I think that, and out in East and West Cowra, I think those large lots are very important for families to be moving to Cowra. I also appreciate that we need the infill housing as well and smaller residential lots in close to town. I think this has got a good mix of everything. And you know what? If in 10 or 15 years we find that something's being favoured over something else, it can always be revisited. It's a strategy. It's something for us to walk towards, but it's not the be all and end all. It's just a very good guide for us in our direction that we're going to head. Thank you.
Anyone else like to comment? Councillor Horton.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. These documents, again, don't exist in a vacuum. This was put together in accordance with a framework which is developed by the New South Wales Department of Planning, Housing and Infrastructure. And it seeks to address a number of challenges or develop a number of objectives, including responding to current challenges, reviewing planning controls, providing increased opportunities for housing diversity, managing and aligning the delivery of infrastructure, which we've talked about, and meeting the needs of the community. I'm really grateful to the staff that have been involved. This is a significant document, a significant piece of work. I'm also grateful to everybody that's contributed, councillors, community members, agencies, other departments. As has been mentioned, it is a roadmap. It is a mud map. It's a document that identifies opportunities and seeks to identify options without necessarily constraining us next year or in 5 years' time or in 10 years' time. It also, of course, identifies some challenges that we have, articulates, thankfully, some opportunities for us to manage and deal with those challenges. We've got one of the things about plans and strategies, and this is not meant to sound violent in any way, shape or form, but to paraphrase an army saying, plans generally last until the first shot's fired. And then, of course, the environment's changed. And so you have to react and respond. And we need to be able to do that with the strategy as well. So we need to be able to adapt, as we move into the future. So I think the fact that this document identifies options and challenges provides options for us, not only in terms of what we do in current Cowra town limits, but also identifies options for what might be done in villages. identifies options for what might be done in terms of greenfield, what might be done in terms of infill, what might be done in terms of large lot. So there's a range of opportunities there. It is not going to answer or provide direction necessarily on every potential option. And I take the points about West Cowra, but the strategy itself does not advocate that West Cowra sewage is abandoned. It is simply saying that are there other ways to advance in West Cowra. So we're looking at a 20-year plan. We've identified roughly 30 years worth of R1 that's already zoned, about 18 years whether they're serviced or unserviced of R5 large lots. So there's a significant amount of land available already. One of the things I think we need to be mindful of, and it's mentioned here right at the start of the document, is manage and align the delivery of infrastructure. And that's one of the challenges, right? We can go ahead and build infrastructure and then wait and hope that someone actually develops. So I'm not saying there's a silver bullet or an answer there, but it's one of the things we need to be mindful of in terms of managing and aligning. We don't want to roll out a whole bunch of water, gas, electricity, sewer, and then wait however long for someone to come along and actually develop the land. So just something for us to be mindful of. But I commend the work of everybody that's that's had input into this document, and thank those that made submissions and that did engage. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Rudd? Yes, certainly. That one's full, I think. Yeah, that one's full. You're right. You're right, Natalie. Councillor Wright.
Thank you. As I said in the when we were discussing the previous recommendation, I am conflicted about where we're going. Initially, this housing strategy, I thought, yes, it's a good thing. We're going forward. We've identified our growth areas and where we can maybe pick up areas to put houses in. And I have been frustrated. I apologise to staff again, but I'm frustrated when we were given information from government departments in 2012 to say we needed 2 hectare lots for septic systems. Now it's come back that it can be 4,000 square metres. So we've made changes there. People have built houses on bigger blocks, which they probably mightn't have wanted to use. I know one person particularly didn't want to spend that much, buy that much land to do what he had to do. So it's been frustrating overall. And what Councillor Horton said about where we can go and put a lot of pipes and everything in, but wait for people to come. But we need a backbone there which can be connected to efficiently. Our biggest headache with West Cowra at the moment, we've got a lot of houses there with old septic systems on that will probably come due to be replaced, and it's getting the sewer system in there. It's not like water where it's operates under pressure and so forth. We like to use gravity the best way we can to get an even flow of sewer through the system. Now that's just my bush engineering system, because when I presume when sewer is under pressure, if something goes wrong, it goes wrong big time. But getting back to, I think I'm right in saying we've got an onlooker here tonight that's got land on the northern side of Cowra, and it's certainly got potential for development. And if he can make it happen or something, it'll be good. There's already one block on the Canoundra Hill there that was subdivided, and it was approved for subdivision and got a DA approved, but that's lapsed due to it didn't commence. So that area is sort of sorted out for development that someone else might pick up. But the thing that worries me, it's been stated that 9 departments have commented well, I didn't count them, but I think more than half of them anyway said they are frightened when we say the servicing requirement is not applicable to these lots. And that's where it falls down. That's where developers can think, well, no, I haven't got to do that. It says here that I just to do what I want to do. And unless we got strong DCPs and LEPs, we will get into trouble. But I just hope that this strategy, there's 900 pages of it. You thought 3 pages would be enough. We encourage development on land already zoned within the Shire zone. If that runs out, we'll move to the next 50 metres on the boundary to develop that, and we will put pipes in to get water and sewer and whatever else into our system. But 900 pages. The Lord's Prayer is 86 words. The Gettysburg Address was 167 words, and those two words those two little speeches is sort of how we build the benefit of life and people work together. But we need 900 pages here to just have a strategy, and that's without, and it's got no legitimate thing for a developer to come in and say, well, this is, I can do this because the strategy says it, because our planning and everything has to it's got to be changed for this to happen. So it's a bit like they told me to sell a cabbage. There's 3,000 words in that regulation on how you sell a cabbage. So this is getting very wordy, and I think Councillor Fagan thinks I'm getting very wordy. But the more you look into this and the way people look at it, yeah, that's good. I can subdivide, I can do this, but it can't happen until the LEP and all the DCPs are changed and we have a commitment on how we're going to handle the effluent or the water. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Watt?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think everyone did see the 1,000 pages tonight and freak out, but the housing strategy itself is only around 300 pages. The rest of it is lots and lots of submissions and our response to those submissions. But 300 was still a lot to work through a number of times over the last week with all the festival, and I think we're all a bit tired because of it. Just very briefly, while a number of people have mentioned that tonight that this is just a strategy and it just gives us a guidepost, but through the action items it does articulate a number of changes which will be then taken to our planning policies. I presume they will also come to us for approval, but the idea of council adopting a strategy is that sets that out, and if we get into a situation where we're voting against a planning policy that we said we'd do in a strategy we adopted, you get a bit messy. And that's why I think these documents are so important, because they do articulate that. They do also articulate to our community and landowners and potential future landowners what council anticipates to do. And it also, as we know, says to our council staff, figure out how to do this. Essentially, like we do every time we make a plan and make a statement, they then have to figure out how to implement it, whether they agree with it or not. And they always do come through and figure out how to make it happen. We know that this is actually how people act, because we've seen the way that community and landowners have responded in West Cowra. There was a number of land areas that have been vacant since the commitment of the council to building West Cowra Sewer Project. There has been over time, some get to the point where they can no longer hold that land, but they sought to hold that land to be able to do greater development. We know landowners are still being asked today to make decisions about infrastructure, whether to replace that ageing sewer system or whether to wait a couple of years and think potentially they could get the septic there. So the decisions that we make in these documents, while not a lot of people might read them at the time when we develop them, people do look at them ongoing, and people who are very involved in making decisions around this do look at them. There are a number of really fantastic parts of this strategy, and I think through our previous conversations, we've highlighted that there is a lot that can be done here, but what I'm looking to do is make the best of it, and I will be voting against it because of the proposals I put forward here before. as we've talked about before, I think that we have a worry of looking at our statistics and presuming that we will continue to age over time. And what I think we should be looking to do as council is to flip that switch and try and build a Cowra that we know will last, and we'll build a flourishing community. And I think we really need to do that by thinking about encouraging working age people to Cowra, and we know through a lot of research that they are looking for large lot 1 acre blocks and to have that idyllic country life.
Thank you. Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Fagan, right of reply?
I don't think I need to. I think we've had enough. We've talked about this for the last 12 months. It's been on and off, but we have had a really good debate. We've all had our say, and I think that we should just let it rest, and all the hard work begins now, because this is the beginning of a longer road than we've had for the 12 months. So I'd like to let that lie. Thank you.
Okay, I'll put the motion. This is to accept the recommendation on 8.2. All those in favour? Passed. Those against? 2.
Could I please have that noted?
Thank you. We will go to 8.3, development application number 10.2024.71.1, lot 13, 1295526.67, Liverpool Street, demolition of existing shed, construction of 8 dwellings and 9 lot community title subdivision, lodged by Vision Town Planning Consultants. 895. Councillor Wright. This is the one we deferred from earlier in tonight's meeting, and the one we discussed in the committee meeting 2 weeks ago. Can I have a mover, please? Councillor Kiss. Second to Councillor Fagan. Thank you, Councillor Kiss.
So the two people that just walked out there declared a conflict, have they? Or
They've declared an interest, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, this is for a community title. I have a feeling that we're going to be seeing a few more of these. I think in itself, it's actually a great idea. It's close to the CBD. It's providing for some smaller lot residences. I did have some initial concern over the driveway sizes, but I think that's my personal preference to give myself extra swing room. But I have been assured that obviously it's to standards, so we can't ask for anything more than that. I noticed at the previous meeting, Councillor Wright had mentioned safety with regard to the traffic coming around the bend, and I do hold a bit of concern there too, in that traffic coming along Liverpool Street, being that it's pretty close to the bend, and if we're going to be having more than one vehicle at a residence, then it could be building up there. But again, I think we're preempting things, and there could be other solutions, such as having no standing zones. I mean, that's all possible. But when you look at the actual DA itself, I can't see any reason not to go ahead with it. Yeah, I'm supportive of the development. Thank you.
Councillor Fagan.
Just to say, this is an awkward site, and I think the developer has made the best value out of it. It is close to TAFE, which is also good. It is 2-bedroom units, the sort of things that are easily rented out and can be affordable. I think that it is actually, and the developer has listened to the neighbour. It was consulted with the neighbours, and the neighbour came back with some questions and concerns, and those have been met by the developer and changed in the DA, which I think is a good outcome for everybody. So I think it's been well assessed, and I think that they've looked at all the options, and I think this is a good development for the area that it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Councillor Wright, your light's on. Are you?
yeah, no, I've got as if someone at home. Yeah, no, this DA looks very good on paper, but I'm frightened about the reality when it goes onto the block, and we've been told by staff that the cut and fill survey work will happen before the construction certificate is issued. But if that doesn't look good at the time, does that mean this DA can be refused because we've already approved it? But there's nothing mentioned there subject to cut and fill survey. Am I right there before I continue?
But I'll refer that to the director.
Through the chair, once the development consent has been issued, we would not be looking at revoking it. Our role is for the construction certificate to make sure that it complies with the Australian standards, and any cut and fill and associated retaining works are compliant and certified by a structural engineer.
Thank you.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I've got concerns with it. There's a big sewer vent there they've got to work around. With somewhere there, the cut's going to be 1.72 metres at one end or something of lot 6, I think it was. I haven't got it here. I haven't got it up on the computer here. It's a steep block. I presume all the stormwater will be going down under the street below it. I can't see how they're going to water back up onto Liverpool Street. I've got concerns, as Councillor Kiss said, with people exiting the block onto Liverpool Street. It's a steep incline. They'll come up there and they'd be more worried about getting up there rather than looking for cars on Liverpool Street. I don't like knocking back these developments, but it all looked too pretty tight and organised. The computer makes things work that cars will be able to get in and out and turn around in the blocks in the centre thing, and it looks like there'll be a lot of concrete going down, so that'll increase the stormwater. And I'm not really sure what the things are at the bottom, if we can increase the stormwater thing into the old system there below it. So at the moment, I'm a bit worried about being approved, and I just hope they haven't sold any blocks before approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody? Councillor Horton?
Thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to pick up. I think, as mentioned, there were some objections raised, and they have been addressed. I think successfully. I think traffic, for example, is relative too, right? Like I lived in Newtown, so you know the amount of traffic that's coming around the corner there at Liverpool Street, I think, is manageable. And if the current trend continues, most vehicles are going to be automatic anyway. So coming up a slight incline, I think, is less of an issue than back in the day when we were trying to learn how to drive a manual and, you know, jumping out and scaring the bejesus out of other road users.
As we all do.
As we all did, that's right. So look, it is a difficult block. I understand your concerns about the cut and fill, but I think if that's been approved at an engineer level and will be certified appropriately once it's done, the benefit that we get from the cut and fill, of course, is levelling out the block, so people with mobility issues and access issues, it means that they're level blocks and people can walk straight in rather than up and down steps and what have you. Because that was discussed in the development. In the plans as well, is that if we didn't have the cut and fill, then the homes would have to be split level, and that gets you into accessibility and mobility issues with potential occupants. The other thing is too, I guess the reality is being that close to town, some people may choose not to have a vehicle. They might just kind of wander around everywhere. I think this is good use of a difficult block, personally, and I'll be supporting it. Thank you.
Anybody else like to comment? Councillor Downing?
I'd just like to reiterate that the developer has addressed all of the issues that the neighbours had. There was one neighbour that had some suggestions and they've all been addressed. There are 47 conditions which have parts 1 to 5 or 6 in others for this development to actually meet what we are approving tonight. I too have problems with the units only having one car space and having 2 bedrooms and 3 bedrooms, and the other cars can't park on Somerset Street because that's not going to be a thoroughfare, and they will have to park out on Liverpool Street if they have more than one car, which lots of families and people who are renting do. That although having said that, it is what our planning documents say that we have to have, that we're allowed to have, the development fits that. I think that's something we're probably going to have to look into as we go forward as a council with our planning documents and when these developments come forward. But I can't see any reason why knocking it back tonight would make any difference. So I'll be supporting it.
Thank you. Anybody else? I'd just like to say I think this there's demand for this in the town. I think it complies, but I share Councillor Downing's concerns about parking up on Liverpool Street, and there's 8 dwellings. If 4 of them have got 2 cars, there's another 4 cars up on top of Liverpool Street there somewhere. And I do agree that we could probably, the time may come, one of these is all right, but any more than that, you start to, and then you say the other one got away with it, why can't I? But I think it is something we may have to look at one day. But okay, right of reply, Councillor Kiss. Okay, I'll put the motion. This is the DA people. All those in favour? Those against? Passed. Thank you. Okay, I'll get those, of course, yeah. Community grants, yep. Then I'll do my notice of motion, and then we'll go to confidential. Bit after 7:14, mate. I'm not going real well. Okay, we will go to 9.1, late reports, Cowra Community Grants 2024-25, round 2. They were in your late reports that went out, I think, on Friday afternoon. Can I have a mover, please, Councillor Kiss, and a seconder? Councillor Watt, thank you. Councillor Kiss.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, it's great to see some new community groups stepping forward. Well, not even so much new community groups, although some of them are, but new to applying for community grants. So it's fabulous to see. We have in front of us a recommendation to approve 21 applications to the value of almost 27,000. This is our second round in the financial year. And would you believe we've allocated, pending this being approved, all but $181.90 of the budget. That's how close. And it wasn't planned for that. That was just simply work out what is most appropriate, what's eligible, and that was simply what was left. So yeah, I was quite impressed with that. You'll notice in there that there's a few new laptops, which I'd sort of questioned why all of a sudden, but apparently it's to do with the old systems becoming obsolete. So that makes sense that they're all looking to swap over around about now. And also there were a couple of extra horse activities that made the agenda. It's great to see again that we've got local enthusiasm for the country living and horse riding, that it's not waning. Yeah, and I mean, obviously these all occur out on properties. So, you know, we want to attract people to Cowra because of our lifestyle, and to see people becoming more interested in horsey activities, I think is a very positive sign. Well, I've just simply said volunteering is alive and well in the Cowra Shire, and I actually think that we owe it to our community to support them in whatever way we can. Thank you.
Councillor Watt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Wholeheartedly agree with Councillor Kiss. I just wanted to say, I think it's really important for us to remember when we look at these grants that, you know, $1,000 to $2,000 in our budget doesn't seem like a lot, but for these communities it would take a huge amount of resources and energy to fundraise, and it's a really important project that we do, and so many of them are putting in place infrastructure that will continue to serve over time, or putting in things that will make volunteering less time intensive, which we all know is really important because people's time is limited. So congratulations to the committee and congratulations to everyone who put in the work to do the application, and keep doing all the good work you're doing.
Thank you. Councillor Horton.
Very quickly. So wholeheartedly support. I think it's a great thing, as I mentioned before in another conversation, in the context of some councils seeking to raise rates and seeking special consideration. I think it's a great thing for us to be able to support local groups like this, and wholeheartedly and behind this. One thing I did just want to call out, and an open question, I might be worrying about nothing. I noticed, of course, that in the arts and culture section there were no applications, so I don't know whether there's something we need to do there in terms of engaging with that cohort a bit more effectively, or have they received some grant funding recently and decided they didn't need to go this round? I'm not sure if anyone has an answer to that, but it was just something that I wondered.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment? Right of reply, Councillor Kiss.
Yeah, look, in my right of reply, I might just respond to Councillor Horton. Yes, there wasn't any, but we also haven't had ones recently for the events as well. I think it's, I've actually looked as part of the committee to say, well, do we actually need these things? But I think that at the time those circumstances arise, it's incredibly important to those particular groups for those functions. So I don't think it's an ongoing thing. I don't think it's all concern, but I think that when it is needed, it will be very much appreciated by that particular cohort.
Okay, thank you. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Aye. Thank you. Now, notice of motions. I would like to put a motion forward. A motion has to be passed to have the business considered at the meeting. I consider it urgent on the grounds that it requires a decision really tonight, I think. So if I could have a mover that allows me to make this motion, I'd appreciate it.
I'll move that.
Well, I'll move it, but I need someone to second it. Peter. This is to thank the staff, the coordinators, the committee and councillors for the festival effort over the weekend. So I'll move that if someone will allow me to move this motion. I need a seconder. Thank you. Yep, thank you. Okay, well, the motion is that council thanks their staff. Well, all those in favour of me making this motion? Thank you. Those against? Thank you. We'll pass that. The motion is to thank the staff. Look, we had a wonderful carnival yesterday, one of our better parades. Righto. I'll move the motion to thank staff, coordinators, the committee, and the councillors that weren't on the committee for the festival, for the effort of having our festival on the weekend. I need a seconder. No, this is a second motion. Thank you, Councillor Wright. Now I'll speak to that motion that we had a very, very good festival. The entertainment on Friday night, everybody enjoyed that. It went over very well. Food was a little bit late, but apart from that, the night went over very well. Then on Saturday, we had one of our better parades that we've had for a while. The parades were getting a bit stale. You could see a bit of a spark in the new parades. So that went off well. And the actual festival down at Twig Oval, most of us had reservations about the venue, and it turned out it was a spot-on venue. I've had a lot of people come to me and say, that is the place to do it. We've got undercover there. We have plenty of space, plenty of parking, the whole thing, and it's not as big a burden on council to close roads and do all those sorts of things. So I thought it was excellent, and I just, that particularly the staff, the committee and the councillors that turned up and did their bit, I thought it was wonderful. So Councillor Wright, would you like to speak?
There's not a lot more that I can add. everything happened. The dancers, swastik, very strange word to say that.
Yeah, you keep putting the A on, don't you?
When I first heard it was spastic, but that word's not in the dictionary. But they were an incredible group of dancers, of 7 of them, plus the organiser, the husband of the runner of the dance thing in Sydney, and but their interaction with the guests, the people at the functions, and school kids was amazing. They could, at the public school there, they got the kids revved up, but in the next thing they just rained their fingers down, and the kids knew they had to be quiet, and they were. And up at the high school, they even got the boys in the PE class to join into the dance program. So, and it was all to do with culture of the Indian community. I think they were a big hit. The author, I've yet to, besides the fact that she likes wearing saris, I don't really know what the Indian connection was, but I listened to one presentation, and if you think I get a bit out of order at council meetings, I didn't know where she was heading there at one stage, but the kids took it on board and and they seemed to enjoy it and got a bit out of it. I think, like all good events, we'll need to have a debrief and talk to our sponsors and organisers about what went good, what didn't go good, what we can change, and we need to do it pretty quick. I think while everything's in there fresh in people's minds. And speaking of sponsors, we had a fair few sponsors, and without these events, the council does put a lot of money into this, but we'd have to put more in if we didn't get the community involved in sponsoring. So it's a big effort for the town, but I think we need to continue on. I don't know if there was any delegation from Great Britain. They indicated earlier on that they want to be here next year, and we usually have them here as an observer, but I don't know if that's still about, but we'll work through that. And once again, I'd like to congratulate everyone involved and take my hats off to Mayor Smith and Deputy Mayor Kiss on their dancing ability and their interaction in the community events, and it was very good to see. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wright. Councillor Watt?
Could I suggest we add ambassadors to the motion? Can I suggest that we add the youth ambassadors to the motion?
The change in some of those, and I've said this publicly, the change in the youth ambassadors from when they started to when they finished, they wouldn't have their face down, wouldn't look you in the eye. And in the end, they'd all stand up and speak. And I think they've grown a lot, and it'll serve them in good stead for the rest of their life, I believe. So, anyone else want to comment? Councillor Kiss?
Yes, thank you, Councillor Watt. I just thought I really need to give a shout out to those ambassadors. What you said, Mr. Mayor, is 100% on task. That those ambassadors, some of them went from, you'd sit next to them and they wouldn't make eye contact, to then being able to stand up on stage and speak and actually be able to be properly heard as well. Others went from running at 100 miles a minute because they were so nervous, but were then able to pace their words and spoke so beautifully. The carnival was absolutely fabulous, the whole festival and the culture. But I think what I took most from it was what an opportunity this is for our young people. There's so much even more that we could be offering for them within the festival content, perhaps over a larger period, because to see the growth in those people that they're coming on because they're willing, they're wanting to learn, they're wanting to grow. This is where we're going to be teaching our future leaders. I saw it as much of an intensified youth council for these ambassadors and the opportunities that they had. Look, all exciting, all fabulous, but so proud of those young ambassadors. They really served us well.
Thank you. Anybody else want to comment? Okay. I don't need to write a reply. I thought it was wonderful. All those in favour? Against? Passed. Thank you. I'll now take a motion to close the meeting to the public and consider the following confidential report. 11.1 request for water account adjustment assessment number 55. This matter is considered to be confidential under section 10A 2B of the Local Government Act, and council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would on balance be contrary to public interest as it deals with discussion in relation to the personal hardship of a resident or ratepayer. Do you want, oh, right, that's it. Okay, there is a that one was to go in, but there is another one in here that a request for tender 1/2025 provision of cleaning services council facilities. This matter is considered to be confidential under section 10A2DI of the Local Government Act, and council is satisfied that discussion of this matter in an open meeting would on balance be contrary to the public interest as it deals with commercial information of a confidential nature that would, if disclosed, prejudice the commercial position of the person who supplied it. Thank you, Councillor Fagan. Thank you, Councillor Downey. Right. I'll put that motion. All those in favour? Against? Carried.